Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the GameSpace Game Show. I am Chris. I missed last week, but I'm back. It's good to be back. And we have our usual rotation of hosts. Hello, Dexum. Or Steven. I forget what we go by.
You can call me whatever you want.
My man.
I think everyone missed last week. We actually skipped the show last week because everyone was not around. I was in Chicago, so you can't blame me. But I mean,
so you're going to blame me.
Mm-hmm,
I'll have you know, my leg got cut open last week. So don't you go blaming me, sir.
That's true. You did have surgery. Personally, if I had to choose, I would blame Shank. But you know,
well, it's good because he's here with us. He can defend himself. Hi, Shank.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm going to throw the blame back over to Bradford because he rightfully deserves all the blame. So
he's not even here to defend himself.
He's not even here to defend himself, which makes him the perfect scapegoat.
I agree. That's a sound strategy. And also is here with us is Brandon Wolf. Hello, Brandon.
Yo.
Yeah. Dude, we need to get you a catchphrase. Maybe that should be your catchphrase.
Just yo.
Normally he would say yar, but I'm wearing the pirate costume. So
you're the one wearing the pirate costume, not me.
So am I doing that right? Is this right? Yar? Is that how that? Is
yar.
That
you got to get emotion with it.
Is it?
You got to get emotion like yar.
Oh, see,
right?
That's much better.
You got heart.
I should
heart.
I should send you the eye patch. I think it would look better on you anyway.
I'll have you know, I have a full-fledged pirate outfit upstairs. See, homeboy here teaches 3rd grade, so when Halloween rolls around, I dress up and play the I spent like $40 on a pirate outfit. It was ridiculous. I had buyer's remorse, but my kids loved it, and I got to wear a sash.
$40 isn't that much for a pirate outfit. I mean, I think that there are much more expensive pirate outfits out there. I've been to Renaissance festivals. I know what they look like.
Yes. What that's like is everything being ridiculously overpriced and a whole lot of turkey legs. That's what a Renfest is like.
That is actually very true. That is very true. But, you know, I got to say, as I've been working, you know, on this stream today, I've been wearing this garb pretty much for the past 3-4 hours. And I got to say, I understand it. I mean, I understand why there's not a lot of pirates anymore. It's really tough doing clerical work with an eye patch on. I couldn't get anything done, really. It was insane.
Just like half of the stuff that you're writing is just blank, and then like the other.
Exactly. Everything's like in one column on the left for me, and everything else I can't see.
Did you make sure that the patch is over your bad eye? That's very important.
Actually. I did. Because at first I had it on the good eye, and I couldn't see anything. It was terrible.
You know what though, we're in 2018, right? So we're allowed to be offended by everything. And for me, I'm offended by this whole eye patch thing. I got to tell you, because I actually have a bad eye. I legit have an eye patch on my kitchen island, and I don't appreciate you appropriating my eye patch. That's not cool, man.
Well, you know what? It's 2018, and
so hashtag deal with it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, an eye patch is fun to joke about, but man, do they suck to wear. And they're horrible for gaming, let me tell you. But 3rd graders find it hilarious, so there's that. And also my son, true story, runs around the house. I don't know where he even got this from, but he runs around going, "Army matey," around the house now. Well, so yeah, it fits.
Yeah, you have a pirate costume. That's where I got it from.
Yeah.
You know, I would much rather have preferred the reverse eye patch, which would have been a monocle, which I think would have been like so much better. I would wear that every day of my life if I had a monocle, but I don't know where to get them. It's sad for me.
The GameSpace Game Show brought to you by the Monopoly Man. Put a hotel on it. That's our
hotel on it.
Yeah.
That's our catchphrase for 2018, I guess.
So we have things to talk about here, Dak. What's on our agenda tonight, sir?
We have a lot. A little too much, if you ask me. But we have a main topic, which is something that we don't normally do. But it's something that we're going to start doing normally. Is that normal enough?
Normal.
Normal. Yeah.
All right. So today we're going to be going over Kickstarters and how you guys feel about them, because there's been a lot going on with Kickstarters lately. Actually, for the past 7 years, it's not new. Crowdfunding is not new, but we are going to be talking about how you guys feel about it, because there's so many mixed reactions out there with a lot of the big games that are coming out, as well as some of the games that have not come out. And we're going to touch a little bit on all of them just to gauge where you guys fit into this mix. So first thing on our list is to talk about the successful Kickstarters. The many, the few. How do you define successful? Let's figure it out. So here is a list of what I would consider, what many people would consider, successful Kickstarter games in general.
So are we allowed to comment on these as we're going through, or do you want to list them off and then follow with discussion?
I want you to speak about them specifically because I also have some media. I have some screenshots of each of them. Well, not all of them, but the ones that I thought mattered. So, yeah, feel free to go through them, talk about them a little bit. You know, which ones you think were successful and why you thought they were successful, aside from the obvious sales perspective. Oh, geez, that's not the right one. So, yeah, definitely, you know, how do you guys feel about these successful Kickstarter titles?
They're good. I like them.
I think by virtue of making the list that they've done something correctly.
I've played probably 80% of what's on the successful Kickstarter page, and they're all really good games. Half of them I actually put money on.
So you're an avid Kickstarter type?
Yeah, you know, I've done a lot of video games, a couple board games, and a couple things that aren't games. I've been lucky that the things I have put money on have worked, question mark. Like I'm still waiting on a couple, like BattleTech, but obviously they're taking their time with it, which I'm fine with. But yeah, for the most part, everything like Divinity 2, Banner Saga, Wasteland 2, like those they've gone through. I've done, like I said, a couple board games, which I think Kickstarter actually does quite a good number of good Kickstarters for board games for people like that. But yeah, I think those ones in particular you pointed out have done really well. Not just as a sales point, but also as developed a good, solid game on launch.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. There's a lot of really good games on this list. The ones that stand out the most to me are definitely the RPGs that we have.
Yeah.
The Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 were huge, but I would even put more influence on Pillars of Eternity because that came first.
Yeah.
And that was, it kind of reinvigorated a whole genre. And it's important that they were crowdfunded because I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Obsidian has even said that pretty much no one wanted to fund Pillars of Eternity, so they had to turn to fans to do it.
Yeah.
So it's turned out to be a really good thing in those cases. But you asked an important question, too, of what defines success. So maybe even before we talk about the games, what does make a success story for video game Kickstarters?
I think... Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What you got, Jake?
So I was going to say, I think there's a few... I mean, there's... So the biggest problem, I think, the strength and the biggest weakness of video games is that they're inherently emotional experiences, right? When you as a gamer buy a game or experience a game, a lot of the times you do it with like your love of a game. So sometimes, yes, when you're talking about this, you can say, okay, I define success by was this game funded to its goal? Okay. Then you can break that down even further and say, okay, if it was funded to its goal, did they budget it appropriately, and did they have to come back for another fundraising bout? And if they did, I would say that no, that's not a success because they did not intelligently budget their game. So that's kind of like the fiscal and monetary and like objective side of it. But I think as gamers go, and as more importantly as consumers, because I really think we need to look at this from the consumer perspective, what are you actually doing when you kickstart a game? You're investing in a product that does not yet exist. Right. And I think that's very important to understand because, and this is why, in full disclosure, I've only kickstarted one game, and that's Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I haven't and that's monetarily that, you know, in its budgeting and everything, that was a successful Kickstarter. It hasn't released yet, so critically we don't know yet. But, you know, when you're talking about this, you can say, okay, I define success by was this game funded to its goal? Okay, then you can break that down even further and say, okay, if it was funded to its goal, did they budget it appropriately, and did they have to come back for another fundraising bout? And if they did, I would say that no, that's not a success because they did not intelligently budget their game. So that's kind of like the fiscal and monetary and like objective side of it. But I think as gamers go, and as more importantly as consumers, because I really think we need to look at this from the consumer perspective, what are you actually doing when you kickstart a game? You're investing in a product that does not yet exist. And I think that's very important to understand because, and this is why, in full disclosure, I've only kickstarted one game, and that's Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I haven't and that's monetarily that, you know, in its budgeting and everything, that was a successful Kickstarter. It hasn't released yet, so critically we don't know yet. this is a game, and I fundamentally, this is why I don't necessarily do pre-orders. This is why I don't necessarily do Kickstarters, is because I just call it principle, whatever, but I just don't believe in paying for something that doesn't exist yet, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think this is absolutely an investment. And as a consumer, how do you define success on something that's made like that? Well, was the product delivered on time? Was it a fun product? Did you get your money's worth? And more importantly, is what you spent your money on live up to the promise that the creator sold you on it?
Right.
Is it a complete working stable product, first and foremost? And unfortunately, we know the AAA industry, a lot of games are just released broken. I mean, that's just a fact. And so I think, I don't want to get too deep into like the whole pros and cons of this, but that's success. It's a double-edged sword. There's both an objective definition and a very much a subjective emotional definition. And I think as consumers, it behooves us to look at both, because they're asking us for our hard-earned money, right? So I think we need to be intelligent about what we're talking about when we're doing success. So I'm glad that you opened it up on how do we even define success.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a few different schools of thought on that one too. I mean, if we're talking about success in terms of, well, first, were they funded? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's one way to, gauge whether it was successful or not as far as a Kickstarter is concerned. But that's really just the beginning. Look at, we talked about Divinity Original Sin, 1 and 2. The first one, I think that their goal, and I mean, that was whenever stretch goals started like becoming a thing. Their goal, I think, was only like 500,000 or something like that. They came out with like nearly 1 million on that first one. And, aside from just the Kickstarter alone, they went on to sell a lot of copies. It wasn't just what was Kickstarted. They went on, it was critically acclaimed, obviously a success. I mean, I played it. I did not Kickstart it, but I did buy it on Steam. So, I was one of those that, bought the game. And then, I was really surprised when the second one was coming out and they Kickstarted that one too. I mean, it was obviously a successful game from the beginning, which, we'll get into the, I guess how companies view Kickstarter on how they perceive, how the perception of making games has changed. But, as far as that goes, success critically, that's one way to define it. Most of the games on this list have sold over 1 million copies. I mean, I don't know, in most of these games where they're not putting any of their money up front, selling those millions of copies is just, extra money in the bank for them. I mean, they didn't spend, I mean, in many cases, I wouldn't imagine they spent so much more to create, their titles. So we do have a few different ways to define success. For us as consumers, the only success that matters is whether or not we like it, because it doesn't matter, how much they sell of a certain game. If you don't like the game, it's not successful to you. So, we know that specifically on the MMORPG forums, there are a lot of us out there who purposely dislike those games that are so successful. But I think that's part of human nature. But in terms of success, it just, there's a few different ways to define it. But, in this term of success, we're talking about funded games that came out, that actually released, that sold well, and, deserve that kind of recognition.
Critical and consumer reception being positive.
Correct.
Yeah. I would agree. Generally. I would also say, in terms of what I would consider a successful Kickstarter, are they listening to their backers? Because there's nothing more frustrating for a backer. Now, I've never backed anything, but this is what I'm hearing. There's nothing more frustrating, from what I understand, of feeling like you put your money toward this project when they came to you and said, "Hey, we need it," and then they don't listen to you. Right. And you see that a lot of times, where it's the developer knows best. Well, it's good to see those stretch goals being incorporated, that feedback being incorporated. There's a number of Kickstarters even out there right now, one with a fairly major keyboard company, where they're getting a really negative reception because they've taken everybody's money and now they're pretty much just delaying everything, not communicating, not factoring in any of the consumer feedback, because it's kind of like, well, we've got it now. Yeah. You know, so I think when you can see some of the community influence in a project like that, that's also a hallmark of success just on the development front. But I would say, because Shank, you made a lot of good points in there, but the one thing that I would push back on just a little bit is that conceptually, yes, you're investing in a project in a realistic manner. You're not. What you're doing is you're donating to a project, but it's on the developer to be able to make people feel some kind of return for that. Like I think even separate from the game itself, which does come into play with, you know, listening and taking that feedback, because in a real investment scenario, there's profit sharing. And services out there like Fig would, you know, would give that back to the players and stuff. So that's also a separate element there. But the one thing that I'm thinking of when it comes to a lot of these games on this list are they tapping into something that was risky? And you know, for a lot of these things, like for example, Shovel Knight, right? So that was a game that gets back into like that 8-bit style, and you know, there's an existing fan base for that, but they're not going to get, you know, an angel investor to come in and give them $20 million to make that game. This is not going to happen. So because there's not a guarantee of return, particularly now when there are so many indie studios developing games like this, right? Or games in that art style.
So I would have to actually ask you. So you said particularly risky. I think in 2017 and now 2018, colloquially, we can agree on what risk is, like what risky is. But is risky in 2018 this? Well, that's the thing. I was gonna just ask, like, is risky in 2018 the same thing as risky from 2012? You know what I mean? Because
it's a good question.
No, it's not. I mean, risk is tough to define because especially in the gaming industry now, where everything is so oversaturated. I mean, you know, in 2012 probably still a little bit, but I mean, if we're going back to like 2008, you know, if we're going back to 2005, well, you know, gaming wasn't nearly as saturated as it is now. I mean, you had, you know, the consoles and you had the PC and you had certain types of games. But now it's so easy for indie companies to start up. There's small teams. I mean, we have people out there who are one-man team, you know, by themselves doing all the work, and getting a lot of recognition for it. So, you know, I think that risky isn't so much as a factor these days as maybe lucky is. You know, there are so many games that are so similar, and some of them are actually pretty good. And it just seems that some rise above the rest, and it's just, you know, how you position yourself in that market. But
honestly, on the flip side, though, I would say that absolutely there's an element of luck in there. But I think because luck is such a high element, that in itself introduces risk, because you need to come across that luck. Because if you look at Steam, like Steam Early Access is a complete mess.
Yeah, it's horrible. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, that what I just said is an understatement. So like, yeah, it's a complete mess. So you can. I mean, honestly, who knows how many people are actually trying to genuinely make a quality indie title, and maybe they've given up like all their possessions. We know No Man's Sky. We know how that turned out, but you can't deny how much Sean Murray had to like financially sacrifice to get, you know, that studio and that game running, right? And how many other stories are like that, but they're just buried under the literal quagmire that is the awfulness of Steam Early Access. And, you know, it's just, I honestly think we have to kind of look at this, not necessarily like piecemeal with just looking at Kickstarter, just looking at luck, but I really do think that we need to kind of zoom out and take a bigger picture view of the landscape in general, right? Because I fundamentally believe that Kickstarter is just another model for game development than is going out and getting AAA funding, you know, from an investor. So it's really we kind of have all these different models that are all feeding into this one machine, which is the video game industry. And right now, I feel like that machine has so much muck in it right now that I don't think it's necessarily sustainable. Both the AAA development, both the Kickstarter and crowdsourced, crowdfunded side of things. I think that at some point something is going to give one way or the other. It's going to either be the financial model. It's going to maybe even be on the consumer end when consumers just say, "I've had enough." I don't know. But
sure as hell is not going to be Steam. I think that's been proven at this point.
Yeah, no, you're right.
No,
they're like, you have some Unity assets you want to sell? Well, let me
go ahead.
Just show you the way to do that. Yeah.
If there's one thing I will say though is that getting your game through Kickstarter via AAA allows a company more options and leverage. Like I'll say, like let's take Harebrained Games for example, right? They did the remake of the Shadowruns and they're currently working on BattleTech. If they had gone to a AAA company through BattleTech, I guarantee they would have pushed to have that out earlier this year or earlier last year, which would make a game that's going to come out and it's going to come out broken.
Exactly.
But because they funded through Kickstarter, they've delayed it, which I'm okay with because it's the dream game I want because it's BattleTech, and this year sometime, which I'm fine with as someone who paid for the promise of a game, which is what Kickstarter is.
That is basically Kickstarter.
Yeah,
and
though, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, that is a big part of, getting into some of the other things, but not to, go too far off the topic, going back to...
Too late.
Yeah, well, I mean, we blew this topic. I mean, no, but...
This is a conversational show. So you know what makes a fun podcast? So we're going to go off the rails here for a second. But what makes a fun podcast is when we're having fun talking about stuff. So, like... And when we've all got something to say.
No.
I'm sorry. See, that's easy for us to say because we didn't put all the work into it. So I love it, Stephen. But
No,
I'm
definitely get there. But, specifically talking about like the success of the Kickstarter, I mean, we've got a lot of show and we've got a lot of those unsuccessful portions to talk about as well. But really, before we move on to it too much, I just wanted to kind of, like we were saying, in how we have defined these things. Some of these games did kind of come out of nowhere. But one thing that I also found really interesting, like Chris was mentioning before, a lot of these are, the older school RPGs that, we really don't find from, the AAA developers anymore. And then, some of them would be considered maybe a little bit risky, like Shank was saying. For example, Super Hot. I didn't really think that was going to be as prolific as it was. I mean, it was
amazing.
It was an amazing game. I didn't realize,
Yeah, it makes me wish I had a VR headset.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
It's fun.
I imagine I work with a sweat playing it in VR, but yeah.
That would be nuts in VR. Holy crap.
I streamed it in VR once, and I got so pissed off. I couldn't beat this level. And it's like, you're all watching me, and I can't do it. And I was actually grateful because it glitched out on me. But that is such a fun game in VR. Thank you, Kickstarter, for allowing that one.
There's a comment in here. Do you mind if I bring this up? Because I think this is a pretty interesting point.
Oh, go for it.
So E. Ballard, I believe this is in Twitch chat, says, quote, "For me, Kickstarter is a way to charge for hype because most of the, quote, new Kickstarters usually start with only concepts or raw information rather than solid projects with gameplay and some heavy work already done," end quote. And you know what, to a degree, I would agree with this, because really, what is a Kickstarter? Like, it is essentially, if you boil it down, it is a sales pitch, right? It's a sales pitch, and it's asking you, the consumer, to shell out your hard-earned money for this. They want to get you. The key thing with these is that they're trying to get at you emotionally, right? Because they know, and maybe not even consciously, maybe subconsciously, they're aware that people play games with their heart, not necessarily their heads. So, and I honestly think this ties perfectly back, that Mighty Number 9, the old school RPGs. Why do you think people invested in those or donated their money, as you said. I think that's actually a much more accurate term, donate. Why did they give their money to that? Well, nostalgia. What is nostalgia? It's an emotion, right?
Yeah.
So I genuinely do think that, to a degree, yeah, they're trying to sell you on this emotion. And part of that absolutely is hype. Now, I think one important, intelligent thing that consumers can do to kind of make themselves, how do you turn an average consumer into an above average consumer, right? I think that's kind of the job of media. One of the things is how do you recognize hype? How do you as a consumer, when you see these sales pitches from Kickstarter, how can you recognize that as hype and divorce that from your realistic expectations?
Step number one, do you work for a game outlet? You see it all the time.
Well, do you actually have the correct answer to that? Like, do you have a way to actually do that?
Yeah.
Because most of the time it's either you dismiss it completely on everything that people say, or, you take everything with a grain of salt. And in most of those cases, you're still, judging with your heart instead of, with your head.
Well, yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, as human beings, it's very difficult for us to, not be emotional on things. And I'm not saying this is an easy process by any means, but I think it's on the onus of media, like us, to help educate consumers on how to, instead of propagating hype, how do you recognize the hype? And how do you distinguish, hype that could potentially lead to vaporware versus, hype that has some, tangible, objective truths and forces behind it? Like, do they have actual projections? Do they have actual numbers that they can use to back up their claims?
Yeah.
And if they do, I genuinely think that there can be some sort of, objective measurement that can be done. And of course, it's on the onus of us, the media, to help consumers understand this, because that will help consumers inoculate themselves against their own emotions and their own hype, instead of, perhaps donating $100 that they could have spent somewhere else and going to something that may never materialize. So It's not an easy process by any means, but I definitely do think it's worth exploring and figuring out, because ultimately it's going to help the industry overall, because
you have to have the context of what's being done, right?
Yes.
So like, who is it? Have they ever done this before? How much money are they asking for what they want to do? Because one of the things that surprises me, we see MMO Kickstarters fairly often, and a lot of times these guys want, like, we need $200,000 to build the world's best MMO, and it's like, no, you need way more than that. And if that's what you think, you're not getting a penny of my money. So when I see those things, one of the things I look for is, are they forthright about the fact that they need extra funding? Because if they're not, then they might just be having their own little pipe dream about it. Like, you have to really understand, where are they coming from? Are they being realistic? Or because there's not adequate protections in place, could this be a situation where they might just disappear? Because that happens fairly often. We have some success stories here and some reasons why we should be hopeful, but there are a lot of reasons why, like, personally, I don't invest in Kickstarter. I just don't do it, because what you're saying about these promises that are there, they're hopes, right? It's what somebody wants to be able to do. So even with the most promising Kickstarter, there is no guarantee you will ever get anything back, and you have no recourse to do anything with it at that point. So it's always this tricky thing, but you have to go in eyes wide open. And honestly, you have to be skeptical of it. Like, even from really promising projects. Case in point, Star Citizen. That thing was an astounding success, right?
I think it's
an idea.
Yeah, well, and this is
I don't want to hate, because I want it to succeed, because I want Mark Hamill and Star Citizen. But yeah,
this was thank you for that, by the way, Chris, because that is the perfect segue to the not so successful MMOs, or not successful Kickstarters. Not all of these were MMOs, but two of them. I'm not a big Kickstarter supporter, but I did support a few of them, and I was one of those that kickstarted the Pathfinder Online game, so I know firsthand at what a train wreck that thing was. In fact, by the time that it actually launched, Whenever I tried to access the game myself, I couldn't. They told me that the time that I had purchased was expired and they wanted me to purchase more. It was a mess. And by the time they finally got everything fixed and they wanted me to come back in, I didn't want to anymore. I mean, they had already lost me. Not that it really matters. I mean, it was just a missed deadline after deadline. And, you know, it's just, it's sad, but, you know, that happens sometimes because in the case of Pathfinder Online, it was a team of people that really wanted to bring this game to life. You know, they really did try hard. They just, you know, whether it was loss of funding or maybe they didn't have the experienced people to do it, it just never took off. But that's just one of many games that we've seen that have failed spectacularly. And
Steven, hi, it's me,
hey,
Pathfinder Online. Hi. I just wanted to know, I've forgiven you for not giving me more money, but you're welcome to come back. I mean, just don't do it again, okay? Next time I ask you for another buy, you just give it to me. We'll be cool.
Buy them loot boxes.
Yes,
I don't even think they got
all
to
will
that
be
point.
okay as long as you take on the title of whale. Okay, just don't worry about what that means.
As long as we can, yeah, as long as we can just diminish you to a literal animal, like.
Yep, that's probably one of the real reasons why I don't think I've ever backed or might not ever back an MMO on Kickstarter.
No, never. That's such a bad idea.
I mean, there are some I've seen, I'm like, but MMOs are such a complex beast that takes so long to properly develop and such a huge team to properly put it out properly. I'm using properly a lot. And money and advertising and PR for it to be successful. It's hard for me to actually want to back something down on Kickstarter, no matter how grand the vision is. And I love you, Brad McQuaid, but it's hard because I've played enough MMOs and seen enough crash and burn and seen enough, oh, look, we're about to, oh, we're dead. EverQuest next.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something, Chris, I think you said this. I just want to start because I do think it's a good point. Perhaps if I could expand on it a little bit. But you said, you know, whenever you see something like you have to be skeptical. And I think that's a completely fair and 100% valid point. But what I think also needs to be kind of added on to that is, you know that, and I know that, and the people on the show know that. But does your average consumer know to be skeptical? You know, and I think that's where I really do think that, you know, this whole Kickstarter thing is like, is this worth investing in? How can you distinguish, are you going to get your money's worth out of this? And I really do believe that a lot of that, because your line of thinking there is correct, that when you see something like this, you should automatically start asking yourself these questions. You know, do they have a plan? Do they have clear goals? Do they have realistic goals? But your average consumer may not necessarily think like that, you know? Mm-hmm. And I genuinely do believe that's where the media comes in, because that's why we're having this show, right? To discuss this and analyze. And I do believe that to not only help the consumers make intelligent investments on their end, because ultimately it is their money that, you know, that they've worked for, but also this feeds perfectly back upstream, because if consumers stop funding eventual failed projects, then the number of failed projects that people put out there, they may stop and think twice and be like, are we ready enough to pitch this on Kickstarter? Because look at all these other projects that failed because people didn't invest in them. Maybe we'll start to see more, you know, better quality proposals in the future.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And looking at it from the viewpoint of the average consumer is super important to be able to actually get an accurate picture of this, because really, us here on the show and people who are going to listen to the show, we are in a bubble because we are the kind of people that consume this content. The average person that knows about Kickstarter might go there to see a game like Mighty Number 9, for example, and think, oh my gosh, I loved Mega Man. And then, you know, they put down their money thinking, Well, that goal they put on there, that's going to come out in 3 months, that's when I'm going to have this thing. And that may not necessarily be the case. Or like more relevant to MMOs, Camelot Unchained, right? People went on there looking for a game like Dark Age of Camelot, for example, and then they're waiting. Whereas the average consumer probably would not invest in something knowing they're not going to get it for 3 years after they put their money on it. I mean, I love MMOs, and I wouldn't do that. So the impetus is on the developers to be able to communicate that and to make it really clear. But you mentioned something earlier too. Not just MMOs, but games in general, like they will shift their dates when there are delays that happen. And they are not good about communicating that is something that's not just a possibility, but a likelihood in game development. Like that just happens in virtually every game. And if you've paid any attention to MMO or video games, period, over the last couple of years, even AAA games push their dates repeatedly. Like this whole console generation has been a series of push dates. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that really sour people to the idea of kickstarting too. But there's another element that may not necessarily be about Kickstarters being failures, because I think there are really definable games that we could say are failures the same way we have success stories. But one thing that always drove me a little nuts is big companies exploiting crowdfunding to be able to do interest checks. Like, there is no reason why a game backed by Sega, for example, should ever be on Kickstarter, period. And when they do an interest check and they take people's money to then go to a developer and say, look, people do want to buy into this, I understand the idea behind it. But at the point when they go and they take people's money that they don't necessarily need is insidious and bad. And it's an abuse of the system, which for a game like, I think Shenmue did that.
Shenmue, that was it.
Yep.
Yeah. So did they actually keep the money though, or did they cancel it beforehand? Because
I'm
that
not
is kind of
100% sure on that.
I think
I'm not 100% sure.
It's still listed as funded, one of the most funded games on Kickstarter.
Well, so yeah,
I don't know if they kept it or not, but you know, you're right about the interest check. Yeah, you are. You're right on that one. But you know, that's kind of going back to you know, the Divinity Original Sin 2. That's why I was so surprised. I mean, that game made a ton of money. Getting it off the ground, maybe they needed the money. You know, Original Sin 2, I mean, they should have had all that money to kickstart it again. I mean,
is the Obsidian, right?
That's Larian.
No, Larian.
Oh,
right.
Larian.
The reason they went back to Kickstarter wasn't because they didn't have the money, but because they're working on a different project, which I don't think they ever finished. But also they wanted to go to the Kickstarter because they want to make sure they had enough and that they could get more feedback from the public, from the people who invested in it.
I mean,
because they felt that was a key part for the first one.
And Larian is a small independent studio. I think a more apt example would be something like Obsidian, because they're the ones that made like Fallout New Vegas, for example. But they're also in this framework where they have this pedigree of making these classic games, and there's no AAA publisher that was going to fund that kind of game when they wanted to make it, because that was a classic computer style game that had not been popular for years and years and years. So Pillars of Eternity 2, did that hit crowdfunding?
It went to Fig. Just like Wasteland 3 went to Fig, and Bard's Tale 4 was Kickstarter.
Which the investors in that also get something back afterwards, which is important to know, because that's not just taking from the public, that's allowing them to be literal investors in that project. So I kind of give them a little bit of a pass. It's when you get somebody who is underneath a major company that bothers me.
I understand that about the major company, but for me, the way that I see it is if you're in a Kickstarter, you're doing it because you don't have the funds, you're just starting out, you're a company that can't really make it on your own. Maybe you're a small studio, whatever it may be. But, once that game has released, once you've done what you're supposed to do, if that game is a rousing success across the board, and I love Larian Studios. I love them. I love both the games. I did end up actually kickstarting the second one. I didn't do the first one. I did do the Kickstarter for the second one. But you
were just complaining about it.
I was complaining about it because I didn't understand it, but I wanted the early access to the game because I really like the game. So I did it for the access. I hate myself. Now I kind of hate you, Chris. But the whole thing is that, like, I did it because, at the time, that's what I wanted to do. But going back and thinking about it, because I've done it, because I've been that stupid, I got to think about it and say, you know what? Like, they made millions off of, they made millions. They sold at least 1 million copies, if not more.
You know exactly, they made enough to actually reimburse it right back into a second game without paying for anything else.
We don't know that for sure, but we know enough that they've made, we know that their first game was kickstarted. They didn't spend any money on that. Like, we spent money, well, I didn't spend money on that one.
Well,
but
I'm sure they spent some money on to begin with.
They probably spent some money, but I mean, we're talking about a game that's, that returned a lot of money. And in fact, they pushed it to consoles from that point. Mm-hmm. So we know that it did well on the consoles too. It's all that stuff that they've done and they paid for. I can't give them a pass, because they could also have gone to a different publisher if they wanted to, or something like that, to get the money. I don't like that companies these days are, like Chris was saying, they might be big companies, they might be small companies, but if they have a presence already, like as a development studio, and they have something to show for it, they shouldn't be hitting up us for money. I mean, all right, to make their new projects.
I get what you're saying, but Kickstarter in and of itself is a publishing platform. Whether you like it or not, for new or old or triple, it's a platform that's there. It's their choice whether or not to use that, and our choice whether or not to actually fund it. Yeah. The reason they use it, though, is because it gives them more options.
Right.
Because if they went to an actual AAA publisher, a lot of those options they have going through Kickstarter, they would not have. But I get what you're saying.
Possibly. Well, and so this kind of brings up, another game that's on the list. And this game, I didn't, like I said, the actual games that I've kickstarted have been very few. But this one was a game that I don't know if they've ever actually produced anything. Greedmonger was the name of it. It was successful in its funding. A lot of people, kickstarted this game and spent a lot of money into it, and nothing came of it. I mean, I don't think that I've seen any actual gameplay from this game at all. But I mean, in this situation, so many people got duped on it. And then we just heard this past week that Jason Appleton is now stating, a year after the fact, that he wants to finally refund at the Kickstarter, or try to do refunds for Kickstarter. I mean, if that even happens, I mean, that's not a first to do refunds for Kickstarter, because we've seen it in some of these other failed games that are on the list. But for that one in particular, I mean, that should be a big wake up call, to everybody. That is a good example of why you should be wary of Kickstarter, because it was a company that they didn't have anything to show for it from the beginning, really. Just some nice screens and some nice ideas.
Greedmonger should probably issue those refunds, and then he should probably disappear for a little while longer. Like, I don't know this guy, but he had a pretty bad fallout from this game, and I'm rather surprised. I mean, I'm glad he's going to come back and do the refunds, so he says. And that would be a great first step. But how is he going to fund the game, number one, if he doesn't have people's money? Because if he had the people's money, if he had the people's money, why didn't it go into the game? Why was there all this controversy? Where's he getting the money now? Like, and he probably has all these answers in there, but I can tell you, like, the questions that I'm having are questions a lot of people are going to have. So I hope he does the right thing, and I hope he goes back and refunds everybody, and I hope he goes and lives a very happy life. Like, nothing against this guy personally, but if if he thinks he will come back and earn some goodwill, he has an uphill battle on that one, which is exactly one of the risks people run with crowdfunding. Is if you do people wrong, they will not just feel disappointed that your game was bad, they will feel robbed. So
that's
like,
basically
that's
what
exactly
it was.
what happened here.
I mean, how long was that game in development and nothing to show for it? Nothing to show for it. I don't think there was even close to an alpha. I don't think that they had any gameplay to show for it. You know, I only really followed it a little bit, but I don't see how, you know, him coming back at this point wanting to do refunds, it's the right thing to do. I think he should do it. I don't think he's going to do it because that money was completely spent. And I mean, we have a lot of super sleuths on MMORPG.com, on the forums there, who really look into every single detail whenever something like this goes awry, as we also know with Star Citizen. But
God, dude.
But
Funding dreams here with our campaigns.
Exactly. But I mean, for me, and that's just one of the games on this list that you know, Unsung Story was another one, another big game. Like you were saying, you know, these. Oh, hold on, real quick. I think is it too early for Chris's cat corner, or what are we doing here?
Hold on. This is Oscar. He's the old man of the house, and he needed some love. Don't pick on me because I'm a good cat daddy, okay? And he's not the shirt sucker. And even if he was, how dare you, sir? I am a father to my children and a mother to my cats, and that's how it's gonna go. Anyhow, carry on. He's going to be.
No, I mean, I think for those who aren't aware of Chris's cats, he has one cat who especially likes to suck on his shirts. We kind of have to stop everything when the cats come around. But moving back on to Greedmonger, I think the name of Greedmonger was very apt because they took the money and run. I mean, they just they ran with it.
I was just reading the Reddit thread, and the community manager that was there for the other game made some post on our forums about how he's taking $100,000 and running, and the first response is, "So you're saying he's a greedmonger?" Like, yes.
There we go.
It was all spelled out from the beginning.
Yes. I mean,
no, I don't want to denigrate this guy because like we don't know the story behind the scenes, and it's like that with so many different games where things go wrong and we don't know why. A big one actually that had a ton go wrong behind the scenes that most people have no idea about is Destiny. Like their Destiny we have is not at all what it was originally pitched to, even within a year before that thing launched. Well, okay. So yeah. Anyhow. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So I just want to be careful not to make this personal about the man, because I think when things go sour in businesses and there are people that are hurt, sometimes they lash out, and it's like anything. Usually the truth is somewhere in between multiple stories.
Of course,
and
of course.
I'd even like kind of go one step further and say, as a consumer, we don't have to care because it was our money on the line, right? So as a consumer, do we really care what's happening behind the scenes? No, ultimately what we should care about is, did we get our money's worth? Did we get a return on the promise that we were sold when we handed over our money? And this is for anything, right? It's not just for games. It's literally for anything that you spend money on. Is ultimately, you use Destiny as a perfect example, and that I think is an even more damning example, because you're talking about Bungie, a veteran studio. You're talking about Activision, a veteran publisher. You would think that they know what they're doing with the history, but ultimately, as a consumer, as a gamer, do I care what happened behind the scenes? No. What I care about is, because this is all we can see, right, is the stuff you showed at E3, the stuff you promised us, versus the actual final product. That's all we care about. That's all we should care about. If there was stuff going on behind the scenes, you know, yeah, that's going to affect the game, but like, why should we care about that? We should really, personally, I think, care about really the final product, and did we get what we handed over our money for? And this is really for anything, not just Kickstarter, not just AAA games, but just, you know, the industry at large. Really, that's my opinion.
We need a villain. That's why. Because when our feelings are hurt because we didn't get what we want somebody to vilify and somebody to blame. And there's also it can be an interesting story. Like I would love to know what happened behind the scenes of Destiny for it to be so radically different from what was promised.
Yeah,
but you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is what was delivered.
Yeah, that's true. So we've got a lot of people talking in the comments. Most of them are from MMORPG.com, and a lot of them are talking about MMOs. And MMOs are a big thing. We talked a little bit about them. Of course, Pathfinder Online was supposed to be an MMO, which was a failure. I kind of followed that one a little bit on, how that went. And then Greedmonger was supposed to be an MMO, obviously. And while we do not know what happened, Shank was talking about, did we get what we paid for? I think those people did get a Greedmonger. I understand, we're not, I don't know the guy either. I don't know this Jason Appleton person. I don't know, what he was going through or the problems that he had with the game or why they didn't actually produce anything. But you do have to hold people accountable in some way, shape, or form. In the same way that, Richard Garriott was held responsible for Tabula Rasa whenever it came out by NCSoft. These are things that happen in the AAA space, and if we're the people putting out the money, we have to hold the people accountable who are accountable for the game. Now, for the future of MMOs, is it going to be on Kickstarter? Because Kickstarter MMOs are widespread. I mean, CROWFALL, Dual Universe, Star Citizen, Camelot Unchained, Ashes of Creation, which is going into Alpha 2 this week. Is that right? Alpha 2 this weekend? Shroud of the Avatar. I obviously, take that for what you will.
To answer your question, I think that depends entirely on how the big name crowdfunded MMOs are going to be received. And I really think that could go either way, and I think it's very important that they're received well. So I really do hope they achieve their goals and that their fans are happy. But you have some big name games out there, like your CROWFALL, Star Citizens, Camelot Unchained. And if they fail to deliver, then the credibility of crowdfunding in MMOs is going to suffer. And that will be a problem because MMOs in general have been in a decline for years. And now we're seeing them start to come back out of that by virtue of having these small niche titles. But any MMO requires a ton of investment, a ton of time, ton of development, and they need money to be able to survive, right? So crowdfunding has been a way to get some of these ideas out there because what we see in the market with the games that are releasing is always on an extended delay, right? So WoW came out, we saw after a while a lot of WoW clones until eventually everyone was sick of WoW clones. But now we're seeing these games kind of fade away and we're getting some of these more creative ideas come out, like your Ashes of Creation, your CROWFALL, all those things. Those were all reactions that started planning years ago, and we're only now starting to see those things. So because we have this big, long delay that's in there, if these games fail, we're going to continue to see some games come out, but it's going to take a while before you really see how that impacts the rest of the industry. And it really concerns me. Like, AAA does not want to invest WoW money anymore. It just is not happening. And if crowdfunding gets a major credibility hit, where does that leave MMOs? Like, in deep trouble.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not really a counterpoint. It really isn't a counterpoint. This is just, I think, another sort of parallel path to, I guess, think about this, is because I don't disagree with anything you just said. But on the flip side, one of the I would argue that the single most important thing when it comes to any development, right? Because I personally, my day job, I'm not a developer, but I work very, very closely with a team of developers. And the single most important thing is your timing. You need to have a good plan. You need to be very intelligent about how you, you need to be intelligent on how you budget your resources. And yes, money is a resource. It absolutely is a resource, but also your human resources, right? Your developers, your actual talent that you have. That being said, I think a brilliant case study is a game like Hellblade. This is not an MMO, but it's made by a small independent team of 20 developers. And if you've played it, it looks and feels like a AAA game, but it absolutely isn't. It was built in a very, very intelligent way where it was smartly budgeted out. They didn't try to overreach. They knew their limits because of their manpower. And they created and developed a very stable, phenomenal, structured, complete, whole working product. And how did they do that? They did it by planning intelligently. Now, that was not done with crowdfunding. That was done independently funded with themselves. So I fear that a lot of these people, to your point, all the MMOs, CROWFALL, Star Citizen, I feel like these studios, maybe they're just not, maybe it's just incompetent business planning on their part, because maybe they're just using crowdfunding too much as a crutch. Whereas you look at a team, Ninja Theory, who created Hellblade, I mean, that was done because of very intelligent planning, budgeting, and timing on their part, and they did not overreach. And I think that's the key thing, is that they planned this very, very accordingly. So I really do think that's the other way to look at it is, yeah, you might need injection from crowds to fund your game financially, but can if you budget intelligently, can you get the project done? I think that's another very important question that I think tends to get overlooked sometimes when discussing crowdfunding. But just wanted to bring that up.
No, I think you're right about that. Definitely. I mean, I think I can't even think off the top of my head of any MMO that has released successfully from a Kickstarter, at least one that...
Life is Futile is one.
Okay, well, that's true.
I think the Black Death might have been one too. Not that I think that's super.
Life is Futile though. Wasn't originally only an MMO, was it? I don't remember.
No, originally it was pitched as an MMO, and they had the single player thing on there.
Yeah, the single player thing is what I remember from it.
Which I think that was actually added on after to help them get to the point. It was one of those things where they had the plan to do the MMO and probably ran short on money, and so they came up with a single-player version to sell to close that gap, if I'm remembering right.
So someone did mention, what do we think as far as Ashes of Creation is concerned? Do you think it's going to release? And honestly, I'm fairly impressed with the headway that Ashes has made. Like I said, it's Alpha 2 this weekend. I think that's a relatively short turnaround time for them to be allowing people in the game for an alpha from when the Kickstarter was. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that thing had funded. So I think that they're doing a really good job. And I haven't gotten into the game yet, but we are looking to maybe get into the game sometime this next week. So we'll know more then. But I do think that in terms of games actually coming to fruition, that Ashes will be one of them. Now, as for the other games on the list, who's to say? I mean, anyone want to...
Star Citizen.
Yeah, anyone want to say Star Citizen?
I'm just going to say that I don't think this game is coming out in the next 4 years. I just don't.
4 years?
I think...
Do the single player next year.
Yeah, I think they'll release the single player, and I am going to go out on a limb and say people will be pissed off. Because that is going to be the target for the ire of the entire internet. If it is not the best game ever.
But here's the thing, though. Is it the fault of the consumer for expecting it to be the best? Because look at how much that game has been hyped.
By who?
Like Chris Roberts. I mean,
part of the problem though is that feature creep.
It is. Yes.
It is the worst feature creep known to mankind. I love it because it's one of the things Brad McQuaid comes with. Don't worry, David. We're not doing any feature creep. When we do Pantheon, we want to do this because I don't want feature creep. Because I've seen what happens.
Listen, we've watched Star Citizen.
Yeah, which is sad to say, right?
I think the reason why Star Citizen gets hit the way it does is, for one, it's the amount that they have, the amount of money that they raised is,
and they're still taking money.
Well, that's two. Is
they
that
keep adding things. They just add like a base or something you can buy, which doesn't exist.
Exactly.
A plot for land, which doesn't exist.
And, you know, the ships are crazy expensive, and they always have like different rounds of, oh, here's the next round of fundraising. Get in while you can because these ships are going fast. And then, you know, there's no ships, and you're like, okay, well, whatever. I'm just, you know, spending money to be told that I'm going to get a ship at some point in the future.
And I just gotta say too, like if you look around, there are enough people paying attention to the things with that game that they are not publicizing. There are some questionable, I want to say red flags, but I don't want to overstate. But there are some things happening that they are not being transparent about. Pink flags, yes.
Transparent red flags.
Like where they have indicated that they really, really need that money because they are burning through it at an incredible rate. And if you look at the amount of employees they have, that makes total sense. Like you can look at the amount of funding that they have, and it looks huge on paper. But when you're factoring in salaries for all of those people, the
benefits,
overhead cost to make that game, benefits, and then you have people like Chris Roberts, where I have nothing against Chris Roberts. He's a dreamer, right? Like, and that's part of what people have bought into. But the feature creep is the issue there.
Yeah.
Can I comment on Ashes though?
I want you to.
Ashes is a really inspiring game, and I love the idea of what they are trying to do. And I think what's allowing them to get traction is, number one, that game is gorgeous. Even pre-alpha, that game was gorgeous. So people look at that and say, oh my gosh, it's pretty. But just like Brad McQuaid, Stephen Sharif has a charisma about him, and you can tell that he was a huge fan of this genre, and like it just kind of bleeds off of him. So like David, you've talked about Brad McQuaid, where you talk with him and you walk away more excited than before you talk to them. That is exactly how it is with Ashes of Creation. I will say this though, they are moving at a steady clip, but they have a whole lot of things that they are trying to do. That would be a game I would not be surprised to see if even in 2 years from now it's still approaching beta. It's one of those games where if they're aiming high, and they're definitely aiming high, you have to give them the time to do it right, because otherwise they will crash and burn. The MMO genre is not forgiving of bad launches.
No. That's very true. Yeah.
So I hope they do it though, because they have some really, really cool ideas, and I'm a big believer in like the virtual world concept with MMOs versus the theme park. Like my ideal game is a game you can go and kind of live in, like where you just sense that this is a thing that persists when you're not there. It's changing. Like it motivates you to get back in and be in this place. And they are really going for that in a big way. But those games are hard to pull off, and they're hard to hook people in the long term. And to give them those motivators, because when you, like, for example, I'm 30 years old. I'll have 3 kids in June. So by the time that game comes out, I'll have 3 kids and probably more responsibilities than I have right now. So to be able to inspire me to keep on logging back in is really going to be a challenge. And hopefully, you know, they deliver on that, because right now it looks super promising.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm really interested to see how far they've come, which is, I mean, it's the second alpha, so I wouldn't expect very far. But I've heard really good things, and I have seen some streams. So I think it's looking pretty good. And you know, I'm with you as far as the world goes. I was a Star Wars Galaxy guy. You know, the Star Wars Galaxies was like, it was my game for, you know, as long as, well, until the NGE. But you know, so I definitely am looking forward to that. But to round out the sum of everything, do you think, as far as MMOs go, are we going to be seeing more MMOs kickstarted, or are we going to maybe see a resurgence in some AAA MMOs? I mean,
yeah, man, I honestly think the answer is a resounding "it depends," and it depends. And I really know, I'm being completely serious. I honestly, genuinely think it depends on a single game, and that's Star Citizen. This might sound a lot like
bad.
hyperbole. Yeah, I think, I mean, this might sound like a lot of hyperbole coming from me, but I mean, I've been following Star Citizen, not like intensely closely, but I've been following it enough to understand what's happening ever since Chris Roberts made that video in 2012. It's now what, 2018? And we still have these modules. There's no actual, like, you have these pillars, but where's the glue connecting it, you know? And I really do think, you said it perfectly, right? Like, feature creep. Feature creep is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And it kind of circles back to, can you plan intelligently? Can you stay within the realities of your talent and resources?
I think that's impossible.
I don't think it's impossible.
I think it's impossible for a lot of Kickstarter developers because I don't know. I think it feels different whenever it's made. And I don't know. I can't really speak to it. But when it's not your money that you're talking about, I think that it's very easy to get taken away with, hey, if we add a few more features, we can get this much more money. I mean, that is Star Citizen to a T. I mean...
Yeah, and I the reason I'd say I don't think it's impossible is because I think you need to, especially when you're asking other people for their money, having a dreamer like Chris Roberts is very important because he's your vision guy, right? He's your vision guy. But the problems start to occur when there's no pragmatist pushing back and say, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that balance absolutely needs to happen because that crucial key is the missing link, which is why we're seeing a lot of failed Kickstarters, and it doesn't matter for what type of game they are. It just doesn't matter. And again, this circles back to the planning and the intelligently, pooling out your resources is, yes, having a visionary is super important, but you need a counterbalance to that equation, and you need to have a pragmatist pushing back and saying, okay, yeah, X, Y, and Z is great. A, B, and C, they're not going to work. We know you want them to work. They're not going to work, especially if you want to deliver to your consumers, because the visionary, the furthest thing from their mind is, oh, how realistic is this? Their job is to come up with cool ideas. But we don't live in a world just filled with cool ideas. We live in a world where people, maybe the only game they buy is this one game, Maybe they've saved up tons and tons, they've saved up just so they can get a kick-ass experience in this one game. Those are the people that these visionaries may not necessarily think about. That's where you need to have the pushback and say, okay, hold on, slow down. And I think Star Citizen is going to be the make or break moment for not just MMOs, but I really do think crowdsourcing at large.
It's a tough one.
Because I mean, there's a lot of, why are people excited for this game? And you look at it, and I genuinely do believe it's because you look at every single con, every single like promotional material, the weekly casts and everything out that's being put out, and especially the cons that they come out with. You see Chris Roberts like getting up on stage, talking up the features, talking up the engine, the new additions to the engine, the way that they're scaling everything, and people are getting excited.
Yeah.
And when the rubber hits the road, they're going to expect what he talked about for years and years.
Yes.
And when it doesn't, and that
when it doesn't is what you're saying. When it doesn't happen.
Yeah, but the crucial thing is it's not the fault of the consumer for expecting what the guy making the game promised them.
Right.
It's not the fault. And so when the consumer gets a product that is not that, the blame rightfully falls back on the creator because there was nobody pushing back on that.
You know what was really telling? I am not, well, I was going to say I'm not distinctly negative Star Citizen, but I think like many people, I'm tending that way. So when you're saying every con, you meant like convention, right?
Yes.
Because what came into my mind is every con is in con.
That's what I heard. I heard
that sounds it sounds really bad. But what's happening to this game is before it's ever even launching, people have gotten so skeptical of it. The public perception, I think, in being put forth by the media, and rightfully so, in my opinion, is that there's something not right with this game. Yeah. So by the time it comes out, I think many gamers are going to be looking for it to fail. Yeah. So not only does it have an uphill battle because of all the promises they made, but it needs to not only hit on those promises, it needs to really, really do good with them, and also meet people's expectations for a wide array of potential players. Like, this is a sim, right? So a whole bunch of people are going to go in there expecting to fly a spaceship very easily, and they might be disappointed when they realize that it's a sim. Yes, right? So, I don't know. What you're saying, though, about it depending largely on Star Citizen, I think, has some merit because it's gotten so much attention all around the world. It's not just gamers that are aware of Star Citizen at this point. There are legislators that have heard like that there is a questionable thing going on with this. So if it comes out and it does not deliver, there will be an uproar. I guarantee you, and it would probably surpass what happened with Battlefront 2, and that got legislators involved. Yeah. So like it could turn into a thing where they start to regulate just crowdfunding in general more than what we see right now, which honestly may be necessary. I don't know. But to get back to the original question of crowdfunding in the future of MMOs and things, I think the future of MMOs as we know them is going to be in those smaller niche games, because that's where people can take risks. And for MMOs to get back in the way of like World of Warcraft, like to have these major hits, is going to take some really fresh ideas that a major publisher probably won't be willing to take the risk to do. So it's probably going to have to begin with one of these smaller games that surprises people and catches on, gets word of mouth, like your PUBGs and your Minecrafts, you know, but in the MMO space. However, there's been a thing that's been happening where in like the console space and single player space, where they have been growing closer and closer to MMOs, where mainstream MMOs have been growing closer and closer to those single, like, limited multiplayer games, and that people want to play on their own among other people. So I think in the AAA space, you're just going to kind of see it get more into like this Destiny type game.
To Division.
Yeah.
You know,
you're sharing a world and play. But it's not going to be, I guess, how we would traditionally know an MMO to be. And, you know, if it's not the small space, it could be that space where we see a MMO kind of come to the forefront. Yeah. Although I think it's interesting, because having watched this genre for so long, like you have been able to actually track when these AAA games are pulling the addictive pieces out of MMOs and planting them in their own games. Like it's like you just kind of witness it to get those hooks that we've had in our genre for so long in their own.
Well, yeah, as far as that's concerned, but now you see the new addiction, which is the whole loot box. I guess you can call it a phenomenon, but it's really not
predatory practices.
I mean, we'll see how that. You know.
So I hear you like shots to the arm, gamer. Well, let me tell you, I have a fix for you, and it'll only cost you $2.50 7 times a day. How about that?
Yeah, and that's the cheapest option. So earlier we were also talking about, you were talking about Sega and the whole Shenmue thing. We kind of spoke about M&Os, which are like M&Ms.
Delicious.
But MMOs.
It's M&Ms and Oreos.
Yeah, M&Ms and Oreos and MMOs.
Dude, there's a crowdfunding campaign. We'd be millionaires. Yeah, don't steal that idea. We're gonna take that.
No, everyone's already stolen it already. It's out. It's out on the webs. Everyone's got it. So we've got Shenmue. So another thing that we've been noticing is that there are a lot of games that are being brung back into the fray by Kickstarter. So we have Shenmue 3. ToeJam and Earl is a game that I'm personally looking for. System Shock.
Bubsy.
Yes.
Yep, that's true. Leisure Suit Larry. I mean, when I was a kid, those were probably my first pixelated boobs. So I think like that's.
I thought it was just me. I always wanted to play those games because I'm like, ladies, huh? Maybe. But see, I was at a public library, so I'm like, how can I pull this off? Like, can I turn the monitor just so? Come on, I was not the only one who had to access the internet from the
100%.
library.
You were the only one playing Leisure Suit Larry at the library, but
Well, no, I didn't play it, but I really wanted to, and I was trying to find a way. Like, listen, man, when you're 13 in a small town, you got to make things work sometimes.
No, I agree with you. I've been 13 in a small town many times. But,
365 times.
But I think that it's really interesting that we're seeing a resurgence of games that were once popular. Like I said, Toe Jam and Earl is like my jam, and pun intended. I love Toe Jam and Earl. I loved it before, on the Genesis. I've tried to play it a few times online. They have like emulators and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been pushed back to this year, so I'm looking forward to it. But as far as the old games that we've wanted that we haven't gotten, are we going to see Kickstarter being the place where we're finally going to get them?
Some maybe.
Yeah, I would say some, but I really think that's kind of impossible to predict because crowdfunding right now is in such a weird place. Like I think if you had asked me this question like 3-4 years ago, I would have said yes. But today, I don't know because it's in such a weird place. I mean, we spoke about like all the MMOs and how difficult that is to get off the ground. We spoke about, Star Citizen, and we spoke about the nostalgia games, the Mighty Number Nines. I think slowly, it is a slow process, but I think people are slowly getting privy to the fact that, hey, maybe all these hopes and dreams that people are promising may not necessarily pan out. So when you get games like this, like Toe Jam and Earl and stuff that, you grew up on, will they be successful? I don't know. Are people going to be too wary to invest in them? I don't know. I really don't know how that's going to pan out.
Yeah.
I want to say, and I completely agree with what you're saying, because like, look at my number 9. It played in your nostalgia, and then it went.
Yeah.
Made that noise. It did.
Like, I want to say how Shenmue does once it finally releases, and how I cannot remember the name of the game, but it's by, I want to say, the producer for Castlevania.
Capcom?
No. The actual. God, what was the game?
I don't know.
Why can't I remember?
Oh, we've got someone looking it up. Also, System Shock was another one that's been
Bloodstained. Ritual of the Night by Koji Igarashi. So how that does once it finally comes out is another thing, because he's basically the guy who was behind Castlevania and the games like that. So another nostalgia game. I think how like that and Shenmue does. If those do well, maybe more nostalgia games. If they don't, because the Mighty Number 9, I think it hit the fan base hard. Like I put money in this, I expected this, and you gave me not this.
That's a good way. You give me not this is
exactly. Let's be honest. Everybody wanted another Mega Man, and what they got for the money spent, and there's a lot of money in there, was not what they wanted.
Yeah. No, Red Ash as well. I mean, I think that was supposed to be modeled after Mega Man Legends or something. Also,
yeah.
And it didn't pan out. So that there is a big call for nostalgia, but for me, I mean, I think that there are games that do require a sequel that haven't been there. Toe Jam and Earl is that for me. I've wanted that for a long time, and especially on like the newer systems. I mean, I know we're not going to see a crazy graphical upgrade, but it's really tough to have poor graphics these days, because most of the time, unless you're specifically going for something pixelated, you can easily just pick up an engine, and even like small development studios can get their hands on engines that just already have graphics kind of implemented, which
Unity is free.
Unity is free, and that one's awesome. So yeah, I mean, as in terms of what we're going to be seeing in the next few years, I hope that we see a lot of resurgence of some of the old stuff. Maybe, maybe not. I guess there's really no way to know, but the next thing that we really have, since we're kind of wrapping up the conversation on Kickstarters, is there anything else that you guys think about Kickstarters that you might want to convey before we move on to the news, possibly?
It's really just, I guess, I just want to kind of put this out there to just consumers. Is like, this is your money, right? This is your hard-earned money. That, yes, games are a very emotional thing, but you know, it's on you as an intelligent consumer to really sit down and think about what you're putting your money towards. Don't just make a decision just based off of some, you know, emotional gut feeling. You really need to think about, am I going to get my return on this? Does this seem realistic? You know, do these people look like they have a plan? And it's really, I guess, just like, you know, a warning to consumers is don't take these guys at face value. Just don't. You really need to sit down and think, because ultimately it's your hard-earned money that they're asking for. You know, don't implicitly trust anybody, especially in this industry. Just don't do that. You owe your trust and loyalty to no one in this industry. I think that's very irresponsible to just blindly give your loyalty to some people.
I know.
And especially in something like this, when they're asking you money for something that doesn't exist yet. Even on a conceptual level, some of it may exist, but that is absolutely no guarantee that the final product, if there is a final product, will live up to what they promised you. So as a consumer, it really is on you to be intelligent about it. And the onus is also on us, the media, to bring light to situations like this and educate you, the consumer, so that you become aware and can, you know, kind of kickstart the thinking process within your own head kind of follow a clearer line of thinking. So really, that's kind of it.
Well, I mean, I maybe it's a little bit different for me, since I'm just the kind of guy. You know, they're like, hey, we're going to make this game. And I just like take out my wallet and I'm like, do you want my credit card? Do you want my PIN number? What do you want? I'll do everything you want.
Part of the problem.
I am the problem. I am the problem.
You have quite the cough problem, David.
No, sorry. I got to get some cold medicine later. You know what, though? Seriously, Kickstarter is very much... I hate to say this because I have Kickstarted quite a few things. And I've been lucky with the stuff I have done, I've been happy with. But you have to go into it with the mentality of buyer beware. Take everything that head producer person says with a grain of salt. Because it's their job to hype you up. I mean, it's fine to be hyped up for something. It's fine to have emotions for something because of what it brings to you and what you feel like. That's all fine. But like Shank said, you're spending your hard-earned money on this stuff.
Yeah.
So all of it, take it with a grain of salt, understand, and in the day, you might not get what you paid for.
Game studios have great hype men. You gotta like that. All right. Anything, Chris? Or
yeah, I'll add one quick thought to that, and it's just this. And I don't want to be depressing, but it's pretty much impossible to go home again. And what I mean about that is, we've seen this in MMOs, and I bet all of you guys can relate to this too. Like MMOs, for example, your first MMO is usually the one where you had this magical experience, right? Like for me, it was in Elwyn Forest. That was my first graphical MMO, WoW. And just walking around being like, oh my gosh, you have that realization that you're in this virtual world, and you get all those warm fuzzies, and forever on afterwards, you think back about that experience that you had. And that goes for single player games too, when we think back to childhood and all of that. But the fact is, we change over time, we get experience over time, and even if you had the perfect game come out, it is very likely not going to give you that same feeling again, because you're not the same person, right? So you just have to go in with open eyes, like you guys said, and recognize something for what it is. But no game is an answer, and so many people want a game to be that, like the Star Citizen thing. For so many people, they want that to be their forever game, and it won't be, because no game ever would be. So you just have to kind of, keep that in mind, that a game is just a game. It's not going to solve something in you or fill a hole. Fill a hole.
It will.
I have a spaceship-sized shaped hole in my heart, and I just need Star Citizen to play it
right there. The Star Citizen hole is a
$15,000 spaceship.
But I have a hole. It's like this big, and it's just for Toe Jam and Earl.
Me about your hole,
that's gonna change my life. Toe Jam and Earl hole will be filled. It doesn't sound right when I say that I'm going to be filled by Toe Jam and Earl, but when I am filled by Toe Jam and Earl, I will be complete. Do you understand? Do you see what I'm getting at? All right, that's all I wanted to say.
Next topic.
Stop ruining my dreams.
If this was an audio podcast, that would have to be the title. When I'm filled by Toe Jam and Earl.
Fill my holes.
So talking about being filled, there's a new game that's coming out called Omen Sight. Omen Sight. It's something that we've, I guess, heard about at PAX South. We didn't actually broadcast the week of PAX South, or the week after PAX South, so we didn't get to talk about it. It's a cool little game. I have a little video here that I'm going to show. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you think of it. So this is a little bit of the gameplay of Omen Sight. And I really like the art style. I really think that it's kind of got like that cel-shaded, cartoony art style. And the combat is really visceral. I really like what's going on here. So according to the developers, this game is supposed to have a lot of puzzle elements to it, which is something that we've seen in a lot of Zelda games. So what do you guys think? Have you guys followed this game at all? Did you get to see anything at PAX South about it, or what are you thinking about it?
It looks pretty. That's all. I have no idea about it, so I'll leave the rest to you guys.
Yeah, I literally know nothing about this, but just looking at, I personally hate this art style, but
I hate this art style.
The colors that I'm looking at, literally the first thing that came to my mind is this would look nice in HDR with all those colors kind of popping out at you.
Yeah. I can see that. There are a lot of colors. But, I mean, aside from the art style, I mean, we're talking about like Zelda Wind Waker here, all right? Like, that's kind of what it looks like to me a little bit, and the combat is really what I like. I mean, I like the way the combat plays. I'm not really like one of those guys. I've played games that are completely pixelated where you can't see like the difference between their eyes and their mouth because it's just like a big block. So if the gameplay is solid, it really doesn't matter that much to me. But that's just my opinion, my correct opinion.
That's just his opinion. You have to take his word for it, though.
But don't take my word for it. This is where you cut to a screen where some little girl is reading a book about Omen Sight, and she can, LeVar Burton can come back and tell us all about it.
We couldn't get LeVar this week, but maybe next week.
Tune in next week.
Okay, so Omen Sight, you guys know nothing about it. I'm the only one who knows anything, so good for me. Everyone else can suck it. Next, we have the Run
David,
beta
you see
signups.
what you've done? You've changed the whole timbre of this show.
I'm sorry. I get upset when I'm the only one who knows about something, because usually it's the other way around, and you guys know everything, and I kind of have to just make it up.
Hey, hey man, I'm new, so no.
All right.
Look. Before the podcast, I spent several hours being drunk on a ship with other pirates and throwing up everywhere. Okay,
and he's
so
not
I was
talking
busy.
about a video game.
All right,
No, this was his pre-show cruise that he does every week. So Ren beta signups. Did anyone know about this one too?
Nope.
Anybody? Well, watch the video. Just look at the video and tell me what you think about it.
I know what Rend is.
Okay, well then Chris is ahead of most of us. So this game is kind of cool looking. It's kind of like a third-person action sort of adventure game. It's got quests. I don't know that much about it. The studio is headlined by 3 former Blizzard developers. So
it looks really good.
Yeah.
We're talking about Rend, right? R-E-N-D?
Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest thing I know about them is like one of their newest community managers is Scapes, so already they have my thumbs up because I love Scapes.
Oh, okay. I thought you said he escaped. I was
no,
like,
no.
From where?
His name on Twitter is Scapes.
Okay,
but
Scapes. Yeah,
he was with Tryon.
Yeah, for a good while. He's with Tryon and Bethesda for a while too. But it looks cool.
Yeah. I actually interviewed their composer a while back. His name was Neil Ackery. It was the last episode we had done of the podcast, as a matter of fact, which was a really interesting conversation of how the composers, the people that are making the music for these games go about doing that, like what that process is like. And I thought it was really good. So Neil Ackery was his name. He'd done music for, I believe, World of Warcraft also, and some other Blizzard titles. And he had some really interesting stories about how when they actually were doing the music in WoW, for example, people went and found like little hidden things they'd put in there. So it was really kind of cool. I encourage everyone to go and listen to it, and you'll find out a little bit more about the game. And music is such an important part of any game too. It helps define your emotional response to it. Yeah. So I embedded some of the soundtrack in there. It'll give you kind of a feel of what they're going for. But it sounded neat when they talked about it, and it definitely has the developer pedigree to be something cool. And in the video here, we're seeing some destructible environments and things like that.
Guns?
So
yeah. And it looks like they're kind of all over the board with some of the weapons here. I really like what's going on. It looks like there might be some squad gameplay as well,
or like some siege work, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Ooh,
maybe a lot of multiplayer.
That looks fun, actually.
Seeing that big siege going out, like the big keep there. Mark Jacobs, somewhere out there, is just banging his head on a table right now. He's like, "Damn it, they've done it."
Hope. That's.
No hope for him to bang his...
Well, I don't mean like painfully. I just want
we can only hope he's extremely frustrated.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
You're taking this pirate thing too far. You should take off that patch.
You know
it's
what?
Going to
it's
your head.
Too late. It's too late. This is me now. This is who I am. It's been on for too long. I'm a pirate now. We've crossed the midnight threshold, which is making me a little bit giggly. So when you're over there saying things like "suck it," and I hope he does smack his head on a table. It's getting to me a little bit here. Is my point. This is actually the perfect segue, because now it's time to wind down a little bit with this next. Hey, look, we got a dog in this. You see this dog, guys? There she is. She's hiding behind the umbrella. So the Nintendo build and play experience with is it Labo or is it Labo? Because one way sounds like lab.
Labo.
But if you say Labo, it sounds not good. But I want to show you guys this video because this blew my mind. So I don't know exactly how this is supposed to work. Whether it's supposed to be like a 3D printed thing that you can do at home, or
it's foldable cardboard.
I know it's foldable cardboard.
You buy the set and you put your Joy-Cons and other pieces in it in certain areas.
Now, I'm pretty sure it comes with like a game. So like the Jetpack one will come with like a Jetpack game cartridge. But like I just don't get it. Like
here's the problem. The kid in me gets the hell out of this. Like if I had the disposable income, I would buy every set they had. But here's the other problem. Like I've had friends do research and look into it. Like the robot one requires like 4 Joy-Cons to work properly.
Yeah, and like $80.
Yeah, and the piano one is supposed to take like 2 hours to assemble. And like I'm just sitting here like as a kid. Okay, I built forts. I never really built it with like cardboard boxes. I just like built them with like I literally just stole my mom's like Tupperware and stuff from the kitchen. But
the fishing pole looks cool.
Here's the thing: like if something like this takes 2 hours to assemble, what kid is gonna have the patience to sit there for 2 hours and assemble this?
Every kid who would ever play with Legos ever in their life.
See, I did not have the patience as a kid to sit there for 2 hours playing with Legos, dude. Like my attention span was like, no way. I can't do that.
I was reading an article though in Verge I can't remember which one. They're talking about they're having some test groups put them together. The fishing pole was really easy. They pre-assembled the piano. Now we know why. 2 hours. But I think for some of these, they're meant for kids, but some of these, let's be honest, are meant for us. You can say whatever you want otherwise.
Just meant for us four, though. Not
Adults.
like anyone else. Just us four. No, I mean, obviously this takes...
Can you imagine a grown man wearing the robot outfit, stomping around their living room?
Dude, you know that I'm going to be wearing that next week, right? Like, next week's show.
Who am I talking to?
I'm sorry. Mine's going to be painted. Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe it's just me. I just don't get it, man. Like, I'd rather just have a game, like an actual game. I just don't get it. Maybe it's just me.
I think kids are going to go nuts for this.
Says no, because I'm cheap as hell.
Shank, do you have a Switch?
No. Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I do. It's my favorite console right now that I play. And yeah, I love my Switch, man.
They look amazing.
Go ahead, David. I cut you off because I just wanted Shank. I was hoping he didn't have one so that we could just send him the cardboard and him just not have anything.
Are you kidding me?
To do with
half of GameSpace has Twitch right now. A Switch.
Yeah.
If not more than half of GameSpace crew have a Switch at the moment.
Dude, there's a few people that write for GameSpace that have multiple Switches in their house.
Robert.
Right. I wasn't going to name him, but yes.
But in his defense, he has kids.
Yes,
so.
he has a good reason, and I feel confident that if he were here, he would probably be saying why this is a good idea, and I believe that probably they are going to make a ton of money on this because who would have ever thought Amiibo would have taken off the way they did, little like figurines. I mean, they're closer to toys than this, but the thing that I think is rather brilliant about it's cardboard and it's kids, so they're going to get destroyed, and if the kids love it, the parents have to go and buy more of the cardboard. And initially there was reports that they were going to be releasing the stencils for free. However, I just found out that there was a retraction that no, they will not be selling stencils for free. Or selling them for free. But yeah, you will have to rebuy. Hopefully you won't have to rebuy the whole thing, because I think it does include a game also, like you said, but there will be a cost to this. They could do some neat things with it that are going to get kids hooked. This is like Nintendo brilliant.
Yeah, I do not doubt for a second that they're going to make a boatload of money purely because kids will destroy them and they're going to beg and scream until their parents go out and get them new ones and spend like all this money on new cardboard. But I mean, I guess, I mean, I'm clearly not the audience for this. Very clearly not. Like, it's very clearly targeted at like children, right? But
yes, children.
Like if I wanted to play a game on Switch, I'll just go pull up Zelda because I freaking love that game.
But how cool would it be to play it if you had a cardboard Master Sword? I mean, come on, it would be the best thing in the world.
No, I'd want a real sword.
Why would you want a real sword if you're playing the game?
Like, that's how this goes.
I don't want a cardboard sword, man. It's cardboard. Like, give me either put me in VR or just get me a real sword. Like, I don't want cardboard.
But that's basically the point of VR, is so that it makes you seem like you're holding a real sword. But if you don't have VR or something like that, or even
then you're staring at cardboard.
You won't need VR because these systems, they take you into the real world. I'm holding a real sword. It's cardboard, but it's a real sword. I could hit things with it. I can, walk around, and they have the robot arms and the jetpack and the swinging and the hurting. I mean, that kind of stuff is fun. And I don't care what you say, Shank. You're getting cardboard for your birthday for the next 6 years. I'm not even talking about Nintendo cardboard. You're just getting cardboard.
Just gonna get literal cardboard boxes, dude, with the packaging peanuts.
Exactly. We're gonna do it yourself stuff. I'll just draw lines on it and make you cut it out.
Can we just stand back for a second though and just appreciate Nintendo logic? This is a company that's VR is not a thing, that's not going anywhere. But we have this revolutionary idea: cardboard and rubber bands.
Yeah.
That is literally the last year of Nintendo. With this announcement, we knew they were doing something. Cardboard and rubber bands for $80.
Yeah, that's Nintendo though, isn't it? They do this weird off the wall stuff, and somehow 80% of the time it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as kids go, as far as things for kids go, I know you're being facetious there, Dexum, but I think kids are going to really like that. My son, he's almost 4. Are you kidding me? If I give him a cardboard sword, he would smack everything with that thing.
Dude, I would have a cardboard sword right now if I could. I'm serious about that. I'm wearing a pirate costume. You think I wouldn't want a cardboard sword? Come on now. I think it'd be awesome.
But that said, as a parent, not a fan of this, because kids will break it and they will want a replacement, and I'm going to grumble my way all the way back to Target. Well, not me, because my kids are too young, but there are parents that are going to grumble their way all the way back to Target, pick up that thing and be like, you better not break this one, son. And then 3 weeks later, that is exactly what's going to happen.
I can. This is if Nintendo is honestly, this is one of the most Nintendo things I've ever seen Nintendo do, and I honestly believe they're the only ones that could do this. I mean, I really do. Like, if Microsoft tried to do this, they would be a laughing stock. Let's be honest. Like, there's no way they could get away with it. Nintendo, I think, are literally the only company that could get away with this. But at the same time, I mean, it is like a brilliantly evil plan on their part, honestly, because it's such, kids are gonna want it, and that these things are gonna get destroyed, and this is just a way for them to get more money, honestly, just because they're gonna have to keep buying these cardboard little cutout things, and who knows how much they're gonna charge for those, but
not enough.
I'm curious what you think the reaction is going to be, though, because these are going to get ripped off so fast. Like, people are just going to copy the patterns for sure, and they're going to put them up online and all that kind of stuff. So, is Nintendo cool about it and lets people do it, or do they get out their team of lawyers?
Stop them? I mean, you can get
look at what they do
anywhere.
on YouTube, man.
Yeah,
but look at what they do to YouTube. Like, even if you have any YouTube content, they completely DMCA you and everything. So no, they're not going to be cool about it. There's no way. There's no way.
And they better hire more lawyers.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? There's a little more money coming. They just sue people. But you have to admire somebody where I'm sure, like, the cost to actually print the stencil on the cardboard, they're paying what? Like, maybe a quarter? Like, but not even for these sheets of cardboard when they're mass produced. And like, the games are coming out with, I'm sure, are going to be like mini game-ish, and they're gonna make so much money on it. Like, it is ingenious and evil, like you were saying, Shank. Well, not evil. Well, kind of. I don't know. It's, all right, it is.
Nintendo.
I'm a little jealous that I don't have an idea that I could be like, hey man, I had some gum in this, all right, but if you fold it just so, right, like, you can totally make this into a paper airplane. How could you not
see it coming, though? How could you not see it coming? Japanese origami. Next step up, cardboard. Come on. I mean, they're just following suit. It's anyone could have thought about it in Japan. Probably.
Next up from Nintendo Labo, a swan.
Exactly.
That'd be a game. They could get the unfinished swan on there, and you could have the Labo. It's just like you pull his tail, the thing pokes his head. I'm having an idea. They need to hire me. I would go to Treehouse.
Someone needs to hire you right now. All right, so Labo, now I want to talk about the reason why I'm dressed up, because a lot of people probably, that joined during the show, and also those who have been here from the beginning, have no idea why I'm dressed like a pirate. I don't think I explained that at all, like why I was dressed as a pirate. So, Sea of Thieves beta launch happened this week, and you guys got to try it. Shank, are you in it?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay, David's in it. Yeah. And then Chris, you're in it too?
No.
You're not in it. Okay, so we can not know what's going on together. So I have not been able to play yet, but I'm thinking as long as I'm dressed like a pirate, they'll just let me in. And here's the launch trailer that we got going on for it. The beta launch trailer. It also tells you how to get into it. Right now, the only way that you can get into it is through buying the game up front. Is it? Is that?
Nope. It's one of the ways. So you either pre-order it, which don't pre-order, that's stupid, or if you're a Windows or Xbox insider, and which, surprise, that costs you nothing. So there was a date, I think, like mid-December, where if you had signed up to become an insider before that date, you were guaranteed an invite to the closed beta. So that's how I got in. I got in the closed beta that way, and the closed beta is actually because a lot of people were having issues logging in, which that's why you have betas to test these out. So they extended the beta. Actually, now it's running till the 31st, which is next Wednesday. So they extended it by 2 days, which is good. I mean, this is why I'd rather them have figure this stuff out now rather than the actual live, launch.
That's how it's supposed to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like a pretty good game. I know that David was drunk on a boat with pirates for a long time. But did you actually get to play the game after you were done with all that, or?
Here's my impressions about the game so far. The content that's there is not a lot, but they've already said this is just a slice of what's there. We want to hold back the rest for launch, etc., etc., etc. Fine. There have been some problems. My biggest complaint for Sea of Thieves is that it uses the Xbox app to launch and to find friends. That's my biggest, hugest, largest complaint about the game because it's evil. I love Xbox, don't get me wrong, but it's a pain in the ass to use it on PC to join groups. Like, we had problems. But once I got in and once I was playing with my friends, and more often I was playing with a 4-man crew, we had fun. The content isn't exactly there, but we had fun because we did the questing for going out and doing stuff, but also we PvP'd. Mm-hmm. And we literally, not 3 hours ago, crew of 4, we saw another crew of 4 boat. They were anchored. We coasted off to the side. 2 of us jumped off with a barrel of powder each, right? Because we told those smiling. We jumped on their boat. They left it undefended. One went to the bottom. I went to the middle. We both dropped off our powder kegs, blew them up. Multiple holes in their ship, and their ship started to sink. And they came back to their ship, and then we killed them all. As a game, it's really, I like the PvE versus PvE, VP, whatever you want to do it, element. Because at any time you're playing, there can be player ships out there. And it can engage in some pretty awesome battles. Because just before that, we had a battle versus 2 other ships. I like the fact that there's multiple things for you to do. Hole in the ship, put a plank on it. You're leaking, get a bucket, take the water out, throw it out. Man the cannon, change the sails, not the length but the angle of the sails. Oh, there's a map, someone has to read the map. Oh, there's a steering wheel, someone has to be on the steering wheel. So there's multiple things for your crew to do, and it helps have communication. It can be a really fun game. It can also be a really crazy game. Yes, you can load yourself in a cannon and shoot yourself out of the cannon. The art style obviously lends itself to more cartoony nature.
Yeah.
But I will say it is gorgeous. Because there's been some rough parts of storms where those waves are getting choppy as all heck. And it just looks amazing. Honestly. Yeah. I had a lot of fun with it. I wish there was more to play with it. Like, I played it for the past couple of days. Yeah, exactly. I played it for the past couple of days, and I'm like, that's good. I probably won't touch the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, so my couple thoughts on there is that I don't disagree with anything that David said. I agree. I think the moment-to-moment gameplay when you're sailing with your buddies and when you come across a ship and like you have that like few minutes of just pure panic of like, oh man, do we fight? Do we try to talk to them? Do we try to parlay with them? That moment-to-moment gameplay, that's genuinely fun. It really is. The problem that I have with it is I couldn't agree more about the Xbox app. Windows push on the PC, their infrastructure is garbage. It's just complete trash. And it's been 2 years since Phil Spencer was like, oh yeah, we take PC seriously. We're going to do better stuff. And they haven't. They've
been working on the Xbox side. So they've updated that several times. And
yeah, just the UWP is terrible. Yeah, UWP is terrible. The Xbox app should just die. It just should.
I feel like I'm on Games for Windows again.
Yeah, it's almost like Games for Windows Live 2.0. But back to the game, like the game, like I said, the moment-to-moment gameplay is fun. The water is like really pretty. Playing this game, 1440p maxed out at 60 hertz or like 100 hertz. It's nice. The problem that I have with it is that yes, this is a slice of the final game, but I have a feeling that the final game isn't going to be much more expanded. And what I mean by that is everything that I've played in the game has just basically, if you boil it down, is a fetch quest. You go to a vendor, they call them voyages in the game, and it's basically a list with clues on it. And you follow the clues, and you get the treasure. You go back, you turn in the treasure, you get coins, and you get another quest. So you increase your reputation to get more complex voyages, which give you better payouts, which allow you to go back and do more complex voyage. And that's the core loop. It's boiling it down. It is a fetch quest. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
It's just fetch quests
over and over.
Me, because I don't really. This is one of the reasons that. Just I hate sandbox games. I like structure in games. I like having a core structure. I like having a quest structure. I like having skills. I like having, all these things. And I fear that even though this is a slice of the game, I fear that the actual final game isn't going to be much broader than this. We do know that there are going to be multiple different factions, but the core loop amongst each faction is the same. It's just that
it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just this is like the Gold Hoarders faction. There's like a merchant faction, and there's like a more mystic, magical faction. Ooh. But the core loop is you go out. They give you voyages. You go out. Bring them back stuff, and that allows you to get more complex voyages to bring them back, raise reputation. And for somebody like me, who I like structure. For somebody like me, there's only so long I can do that. I can't do that for hundreds and hundreds of hours. There are players out there that's all they can do. I mean, more power to them. That's what they like. They like unstructured gameplay. More power to them. I'm not one of those players. I like having structure in games. I don't want a open-ended sandboxy type game. The thing that gets me is that the world that they have built is so ripe with tons of potential. I mean, you're literally talking about pirates. How many cool narrative arcs can you do with famous historical pirates? How many? 7. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff with ghost ships, with all of the mythology and mythos surrounding pirates in the beautiful world that they have crafted. There's so much potential, and I feel like it's not going to tap into that potential. I really do feel like the game is just going to be this loop of fetch quests with your own moment-to-moment storytelling. And for someone like me, doesn't matter how fun it is shooting other ships and like hanging out on a ship with your friends, that is not enough for me to come back, day after day after month after month. It's just not.
I can see
so
that.
I'm waiting to see what the final game is, honestly, before I pull the trigger. And this is why you don't pre-order. This is why you play the beta.
I agree with you. I think if you have a group of friends and you own a bunch in it, that'll make the game worth it, at least for me, in my point of perspective. But I agree with you that I am concerned about how much more other than fetch quests it's going to be. But as Kiwi pointed out in chat, you do have the ability to projectile vomit on people.
It's you do. You do.
That's my first
I always have that option.
It's really great. You can get drunk in the game, and getting drunk is amazing because literally getting upstairs is so hard.
I've said that exact thing.
Not to mention, the projectile vomiting makes the other person's screen basically get green everywhere so they can't see. But the chests you pick up, sometimes they're special chests. There's the chest of 1,000 grogs.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Which I hate, but you know what's worse? The chest of sorrows.
Yes.
The chest of sorrows every few minutes starts to cry, and you have to have this chest on your ship. So every time it starts crying, you have to start building the ship because it starts filling with water.
But
yeah,
you're right.
It's a fun game. The longevity of it will depend on what it has at launch.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm going to probably... Oh, yeah, that's right. So Kiwi did remind us, and this is something that I didn't put in there about the Xbox Game Pass that they're doing. It's $10 a month. They say they are going to have launch games on there, and this game is going to be one of them. So Sea of Thieves will be on there. I'm not going to say don't waste your money on it, because if this is a game for you, if you're a pirate, it looks like this, then I would say it's probably a good bet. But another game that has just released actual launch this year, well, not this year, it launched today, is Monster Hunter World, the launch of Monster Hunter World. I did get to play this game, so I know a lot about it. I have not bought the game yet, but I have played it. I do think it's an amazing game, but who here has had the chance to do a few rounds with some monsters in game?
I literally bought it after work today, and I played it on the X over there. And I was trying to skillfully point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
But yeah, no, I was so this is I probably have an interesting perspective because this is I've never played a Monster Hunter game before.
I was the same way.
Yeah, so I had no idea what to expect, but I was talking to my friends at work and they were telling me like what kind of game it is, and I was watching a bunch of streams last night on it, and I think Bill had one for like 2 hours, so I started watching some of that. And what got me was a level of customization, because I'm one of those players that I love customization. I love the RPG side of it, if that makes sense, you know. And like I was really wondering what the X enhancements were going to be, because it says Xbox One X enhanced, so I was trying to figure it out. Visually, I thought it looked really cool. It's got HDR, so that looks nice. But and I'm not sure. It might be checkerboarded 4K, but I got to actually do my pixel counting on that. But the game it's really cool in my impression, because like there's a lot of customization, and I love that. And I feel like there's a lot of depth to it. You know, there's a lot of stuff that as I learn how to play, it'll get more and more interesting, because I'll slowly like uncover all these layers to it.
Yeah.
But honestly, like when I get off this show, I'm like literally going to go back and play, because I spent 45 minutes in Character Creator alone. So like,
You're not alone.
Yeah. No,
Well,
it's fun. It's fun for sure.
we know that it's not Chris's thing, but it does have cat companions, and we know how he feels about that.
When I played the one Monster Hunter that I played, that was the highlight of it. Cat companions.
I named
They
my
were
cat
cute.
companion Bradford. So
Of course you did. Of course you
And
did.
he just meows at you about how much money you have all day long.
Obviously. But yeah, I definitely think I'm still concerned longevity-wise about Monster Hunter World, but I love the amount of weapons. I love the different monsters. I love the way the world looks. I think that it is an amazing game, but I just don't know for how long I'm actually going to play this game. I also really like the multiplayer. I think that's a really good thing. So, you know, if you guys are on it, and, you know, well, actually, I don't know if that's going to work, because you're playing it on Xbox though, Shank.
and
right?
and I don't have Xbox Live or PS Plus, because I don't feel like paying for multiplayer. So
Yeah, so with all the money that you have in swimming in your money pit or whatever it is that
This is
you
why your
have.
cat nags you. Like, he's like, just play with friends. Invest in your relationship, Shank. That's it. It all comes out as just cute little meows.
yeah, no, if I can play for free on PC, I don't want to have to pay Microsoft and Sony. And plus, I'm much more of a single player guy anyway. Like, one of my buddies at work, he has it on PS4, and he was like, "So you're getting it on PS4, right?" And I told him literally 4 times, like, "No, I'm getting it on Xbox, because I want the best looking version," you know. And then he was like, I bought the game, came home, and I was like, "All right, dude, I just got the game. I'm downloading it." And he was like, "Wait, did you actually get it on Xbox?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I told you like 4 times. I'm getting it on Xbox."
So here's a question, because I am looking at the Metacritic, and it is scoring very high. It's like a 91%, which is super impressive. People are saying it opens the doors to people who may have never played it before, which is like, hey, that's me.
Which is me.
So
Just me too.
in this game, are there like the 2-hour long like boss battles or things where you have to have other people? Because that's what turned me off about the other one, like 2-hour long monster fights. That's a long time.
So the the buddies that I've played with, they're veterans of Monster Hunter, so they really know, and that was the kind of the I guess, complaint about the previous ones is that you would get to a certain point just in single player, and then it became super, super impossible to defeat a monster. So you had to go to multiplayer, grind with friends to get equipment, and then come back into single player if you wanted to complete the story. This game, you can play the entire game entirely solo or with friends.
Wow.
Yeah, so
it's pretty cool.
Both are completely viable options if you want.
So do you know about like the super long boss battles though? So, since
I don't know.
Although I guess if you can play it all single player, right? You could just suspend your system.
You could.
So that's a solution there.
Skill, and I think get good, but the tougher boss battles, if you want them to be shorter, plan better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the tougher boss battles will require planning, like the trank darts, the certain traps, the certain this, and what part of the boss you're actually hitting on to make him lower his defense or lower his HP.
That's true. All that matters.
Which is what Monster Hunter is.
Yeah. And of course, like, I did notice that whenever I was playing multiplayer, it doesn't seem that they scale up the monsters much, if at all, because some of the same monsters were dropping a lot faster whenever we had a full team of people. It didn't seem like it was taking very long to kill them. Whenever I was by myself, it took substantially longer. So, you know, that's always a viable way to play, is to play in multiplayer if you're worried about hours-long battles. But I can't imagine, I mean, none of the battles I had lasted any more than 15 minutes, probably 15, 20 minutes. So
that's not bad. Yeah, that makes me curious. I'm going to watch some reviews after we get off the show.
And definitely, Chris, check out the videos about making your personal palico.
Yeah.
Because you can customize them.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Personal what?
Your palico, your cat.
The cat.
yeah, cats.
You can customize what it looks like.
I see what they did. It's like calico, but it's your friend, so it's your palico. Right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, like, as soon as I saw the character customization screen, like, that is what sold me on the game.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to just
pretty good.
swing back around to how excited he was, how excited Chris was that he got Palico and Calico. He was just crazy excited that he got that.
Listen,
I love that.
You guys, you were in the process of hooking me into this conversation because I had kind of just assumed this was not a game for me, and then you said the magic words. Like, you not only brought in cats, you brought in cute cats.
Yeah.
And then a
You
pun.
can customize.
You can customize that name, Bradford.
Yeah. But their armor.
Look, I'm a man of dad jokes, so when you brought out Palico, yeah, that earned major points for me.
That was it. That's the clincher. All right. Well, now it is time for a segment. What are you playing? And David, you didn't tell me what you were playing this week, but you know what? I still have some info from last week that we didn't really touch on, which is Warframe.
Yes.
So you have a column on Warframe. Nobody told me about it, except,
Really?
well, Kiwi told me about it. She tells me everything, so you can't hide anything from me. But what's going on with your Warframe column?
All right, so the last one that came out wasn't this week, but last week, which was an introduction to Warframe for viewers new and old. This week is a new column coming out, which I was talking about the barrier to entry that is Warframe. Because I feel, and I know several other people feel, that to a new player, and even to returning players, there kind of is this huge kind of like which caused me to stop playing sometimes. Because as a new player, you get in, there's, well, which Warframe did I pick? There's all these Warframes. Well, which one did I get? Which is best? Oh, wait, you can click mods. Wait, how many mods are there? Why are there so many mods? Then wait, weapons? How many weapons are there? So it's like there's this huge pile, and you don't really need to know everything. But so I think that is part of the stigma that stops some people from playing it, is because there is so much content, not just with what you can do in the game, but the way you can equip everything.
Yeah.
So that's what the next column will be about. Wednesday. But yeah.
That's
Warframe
awesome.
is a great game, and been on for over 5 years, has been kickstarted, and still doing good new content all the time.
Yeah.
Literally all I know of Warframe is that it like every single time people bring up Warframe to me, they're like, oh yeah, it's like Destiny but better.
That's I've
all
heard
I
that
know.
exact thing.
Look,
Yeah.
look,
I didn't
Space
feel that way
Ninja.
when I played it.
Space Ninja. That's all you need to know. Space Ninja.
That's literally all you need to know. Like,
You
in order to play the
parkour?
game well, Space Ninja. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With a machine gun.
Well, that's a little bit different than Ninja. But, you know, I did play Warframe, and I left it for many years. So coming back around to it, your guides will definitely maybe get me back into it if I'm not busy with other things. Like Chris is, because Chris is very busy with other things. Why don't you tell us about the new thing that you're busy with now, Chris, while I show this video?
So I got... all right, so I got to give you a little background. Part of what I do, like as the hardware dude, is I email lots of different places and I try to get things in for us to check out. So for the longest time, we weren't able to get consoles just because our site is historically we've not focused a huge amount on. Dude, I love how you sped me up on this. Anyways, we haven't focused a huge amount on consoles. We're a PC gaming site, and we're developing in this hardware thing. So I was like, you know what? We've been working at this for about a year. We're doing good. So I reached out to Microsoft, and lo and behold, they sent us out a Xbox One X reviewers kit, which is a little bit different than like a standard Xbox One X because they apparently they don't want you to not have anything to play on it. So it shows up in this box, and as you guys can see on the video right now, has a ton of different stuff in it. So you have your 90-day pass to Xbox Gold. You have Spotify, EA Access, Game Pass for 3 months. But they give you Planet Earth 2 in 4K and HDR, which is kind of awesome. But what surprised me is it was just this stack of game codes in there. Like there was literally 20 game codes in this thing for almost all of the big games that came out up to about a month ago, actually.
Disneyland Adventures.
That was one, and I'm really curious what that even is, by the way. But they had like Destiny 2, your Call of Duty, Super Lucky's Tale, Quantum Break, Battlefront 2, really just a ton of stuff. Madden, FIFA, Gears of War, Forza. Like it just kept going on and on and on. Your Halos are all in there. So that's it was really kind of cool. So part of what I spent today doing was getting this thing set up and redeeming all of the codes in case I happened to show one in this video so nobody would steal it. But no, is really cool. So having played mainly on PlayStation 4 for so long, it was a very new thing for me to go back into the Xbox ecosystem. I had a buddy of mine over, and he's just kind of laughing at me because I started up Netflix, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how to get out of Netflix right now because on PlayStation, you hit the button, it takes you back to the main desktop, but Xbox has like different tabs that you have to go through. So I felt like a total noob. And here's my buddy laughing at me, and he's like, so you write for a video game site? I'm like, yeah, you can leave and go home now. But it was pretty cool, honestly, to be able to like get back in there. And I'm really excited to check out some of the features this thing brings to the table. Like it's by far the most powerful console on the market right now. Absolutely. So one of the things I'm going to be looking for with it is how does it compare to a gaming PC? Now, what's tricky with that is I can't compare it to my gaming PC because it's much too powerful. So I have a 1080 Ryzen system downstairs. And even that, I don't think is going to be quite a fair comparison. But I'm really going to be looking to see, like, is this a console for PC gamers? Finally, because we're in a time when like to buy a new graphics card, for example, costs a fortune because of mining. So there are people out there that could consider this at $500 as a possible alternative. And because all of the codes were all digital downloads and they're all like 100 gigabytes apiece, I have not actually had the chance to get in there and actually try it firsthand yet outside of the menus and stuff. But I am really excited to give this thing a try.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say because I was going to say because I got the console like when it launched in November, and the PC that I have, I feel like you and I have pretty much the same PC. I'm not sure, but I have to say like the reason I bought that thing was 100% because I loved the engineering in it. If you actually look at the teardowns of the thing, how they managed to fit all of that power, including the vapor chamber and, you know, all of that and the integrated power supply into a chassis that's smaller than the Xbox One S And I don't know if you've booted it up yet and played with it, but it is whisper silent when you play games on it. You can't hear it. It is so quiet. It's crazy. I'm blown away. You know, like as a PC gamer, I have a 1080 Ti in this PC and I have a 6700K. So like the comparison that I always like to look for is I'm not expecting 4K 60 FPS from that. It was never advertised as that, right? But the experience that I get out of that box, especially with the first-party titles like Forza Horizon 3, incredibly impressive. Forza 7, incredibly impressive. Gears of War 4, very impressive. It's an impressive box for what it costs. And to your point, is it a good value? I think that's really ultimately what you're asking. Is it a good value for PC gamers? And shameless plug, but Bradford and I, we have our own podcast, and we did an entire podcast on what we think of this system, and we both came away very impressed. And in my humble opinion, I really do think it is a phenomenal system for the price. I cannot build you a PC for $500 that can compete with that. I just can't.
At this time.
If you tried to put a graphics card in there that would compete with that, it would probably cost $500 by itself right now.
Mining aside, right? Mining aside, if you just look at just the PC hardware in terms of power compared to the similar component in there, the graphics, the GPU in there, they're saying it's 6 teraflops, right? So it's most likely a supercharged, custom-built 580, RX 580. But you also look at the CPU, the hard drive, which is a custom-made hard drive, and a vapor chamber. I mean, it's plus 12 gigs of GDDR. I mean, you're talking about a system that you cannot build. Even if you bought all those things at the original MSRP, you can't build something like that for $500. And I genuinely do believe that it is a great, great little product. And frankly, that's what consoles should be. Yeah. They should offer your average PC gamer an experience that he cannot obtain. And that's what that is.
You're mentioning of likely having an RX 580 in there. I just went to Newegg and sorted just by what Newegg is selling at MSRP. The cheapest 580 that they have available, granted out of stock, is still $399.
Well, there you go.
Rough, yeah.
It's insane. But you also have to remember, though, it might have, and I try to warn people, when they say teraflop, don't just focus on the number, because that tells you nothing. Like, it's all relative performance. So when they say 6 teraflops, okay, great. The closest comparison is a 1070, but it punches, I can tell you from experience, it punches above a 1070. It really does. Purely because you're talking about lower level API and like all this stuff, but it's...
So this is where I'm at with it. And one of the reasons why I was really excited about it is I have a pretty powerful PC too. I have 1080s and TIs and SLI, right? So this thing can do 4K, and it can do 4K 60, and it's pretty. But before, I had just my PlayStation 4. And when you go from high resolution down to 1080p, where sometimes it's chugging at that lower resolution, like 30 frames or less in some situations, it's almost painful to step down like that. And I've always loved being able to play a console because as a parent, and I mean, just sometimes you don't want to be sitting at a desk. So I wanted to have that kind of option, but my PlayStation 4 just was feeling so antiquated compared to a modern PC. And I think that's probably the case for much more modest PCs than the one I have here. So I was looking for something that I can hook up to a 4K display, but also I'm very curious how it's going to work on a 1080p display, because they sold on 4K and HDR, and obviously those are huge points, but it does super sampling, which at 1080p should make a substantial improvement on the crispness of games. So I'm very curious about that as well. So I'm super excited. I actually picked up Forza. I have Forza 3 Horizon, and I had Forza 7 from PC, and I'm going to do something here. Okay, there is Forza 7 here. Let's see if this is legible. Oh, it's backwards. I'm just going to read it. All right, so anyone who wants Forza 7, it's 2R6W4 WMYQJ 9VQRG 92M7C Y3PKZ. So that is free to whoever wants that. And you can thank Microsoft. But yeah, I'm really excited. I think this is going to be cool. I'm definitely going to check that out. And honestly, if I pick up Monster Hunter World, it's probably going to be on the X.
Which,
I mean, you gotta put it to use.
I would. I have a Pro, and I probably will, if I pick it up, it's going to be on the Pro. But not because I choose PlayStation over the Xbox in this particular situation. I am going to choose it because I still have a bunch of credits from when MHO went down, Marvel Heroes Omega. So I'm not going to spend any money for a long time buying stuff on PlayStation.
Well, and it matters what ecosystem you're in.
Well,
too.
I've got. It doesn't matter. I've got it both. It just depends. It also depends on where all my friends are playing too, which none of them are going to be playing Monster Hunter. So I will just make new friends and be sad. But yeah, definitely. That is a really awesome product, and I'd like to hear. Well, I can't wait to read the article about it. I'd like to know what you think of it, because you can't really take Shank's word for it. So.
This just says the guy who was pretending to be LeVar Burton earlier. You literally said, "Don't take my word for it," which applies to everything from now on, by the way. You don't pull a Reading Rainbow unless you go all in for Reading Rainbow.
I was actually trying to go more Magic School Bus, but I mean, whatever. So...
All right, Frizz. It's time for a trip, children!
I still got dogs walking around. So now, before we go, we've still got Shank to talk about, which we've been talking about him a lot lately. But he's got something coming up tomorrow that everyone needs to check out. If you're Chris, then it's today. Anyone on the East Coast, it's just later today. But in real time, where normal people live, it's almost midnight. So it's going to be a stream that you do with the Balls game.
Liar.
Yep. And you gave us a little video here. So the sound on this is not great because I had to lower it or else it would blow out everything. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going on. So here you go. So maybe you want to tell us what's happening here.
Yeah, so I don't even need to see it because it's so basically this is PUBG. Myself, Bradford, our friend Brian, and our buddy Ralph, we were all driving eastward, and what happened was we were just having a nice Final Fantasy 15 drive, and we ran into an enemy player. I completely panicked. Chaos basically ensued. It broke out. What happened was I started driving around the player. Brian, who was freaking out, accidentally shot Bradford. Bradford got knocked out of the truck. I then ran over Bradford, killing him instantly. We pursued the dude who was driving away. He intelligently led us straight back to his crew, who proceeded to blow us all up, and we died. So we literally went from everybody's alive to everyone is dead in under 2 minutes, which is damn impressive because if you've been following us at all, like, this is what you can expect in PUBG. So if you actually go watch the video, this video is on my personal YouTube channel. Just search for Shank TH Tank on YouTube. This specific video is called Literally Everything Goes Wrong, because literally everything goes wrong. And it just makes me laugh just even watching it, even though I know what happens. But basically, Bradford and I, for some reason, the guys at MMORPG decided to, For some reason, you guys let us have a weekly live stream on Saturday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be with myself, Bradford, and the rest of the Tawdry Balls crew. We're calling it Balls Does PUBG. You can join us for a couple hours. We don't know how long we're going to stream, but we're starting at 10 p.m. Eastern every Saturday on the MMORPG Twitch and YouTube channels, and we're just going to play PUBG. That is basically what you can expect. We are literally the world's worst PUBG crew. Bradford, I believe, has a column on MMORPG about his PUBG journal. But that is literally a taste of what you can expect. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be terrible. Like, we are so bad. But hopefully you guys join in, have fun. You guys are welcome to hop in our Discord channel when we're live streaming and just talk and hang out with us. But it should be fun. I'm super excited for it. It's going to be complete chaos.
Well, it looks like chaos, definitely. So I'm referring to it as Balls Out Saturday, and I'm gonna keep that one. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna be checking it out. So everyone should do the same if they know it's good for them.
I'm pretty sure that name is probably taken somewhere
Balls
on some
Saturday?
other website. Yeah.
No, it's mine.
You tell me, you go try to copyright that.
I'm not going to copyright it. I don't need to because I have faith, and
that no one else has balls out Saturday.
No one does. Fight me on it, somebody with balls out Saturday. Wait, no, not that. Don't do that. But name wise, who cares? Tawdry balls tomorrow night at 10, and hopefully you'll have a better chance at starting on time than we seem to do every week. So that's aside from that, anything else you play in there, Shank? I know you Sea of Thieves we already talked about, so we're not going to dive back into that.
No. Just we're really excited for the stream tomorrow night, and yeah, it's going to be hilarious. I'm so excited. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome. So this week I'm not playing anything special. Hyper Universe, I have a review on that coming out maybe next week after maybe. I don't know. David, I think, did you take the other Hyper Universe? So we'll have conflicting views. It's okay. It's okay. It's a 2D side-scrolling MOBA. I did the preview on it, so I'm already pretty well versed in it, and they haven't added too much from whenever I previewed it, so it's going to be a short review. But if you guys have a chance to check it out, just see if you like it, if you like MOBAs, if you like 2D, if you like fighters. It's not really a fighter. I wouldn't really call it a fighter because you don't really... I mean, there's fighting, but it's not like combos and stuff like that. But so that's what I'm playing. What about you guys? Anything that you're watching? Anything you watched this week or you're into that you need to tell everyone about besides my dog?
The Grand Tour on Amazon Prime.
You know,
that show
new? Is it a new season?
New season, yep. They're about 6 or 7 episodes into the new season, and I'm telling you, man, that show in 4K HDR is pretty. It is very pretty, and it's just... I used to watch the old BBC Top Gear with these same guys, and it's the same hosts, but if you got Amazon Prime, watch that show. It's great. It's incredible.
Awesome. Anything else you guys that you're watching?
I finished Stranger Things Season 2, which that is an amazing show. By the way, I just adore that. I'm way behind the facts. Have you guys watched it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super, super good. I love the main evil thing. So ominous. Mm-hmm. So I'm very excited to see Season 3. But I did start that show Dark, I mentioned the last time I was on, which is very interesting so far. There's some weird, like, time-bendy stuff going on with it. Yeah. You know what I found out about it, though? It's the first show I ever tried to watch with English dubs, because it's actually a German program. Not a fan. I just set it back to German with the closed captions, and I actually enjoy that way better. Yeah.
But the audio, because what I like to do whenever I watch, because a lot of times I like to watch TV whenever I'm about to go to sleep, so I put the TV on low, and then I watch the subtitles and I read, which makes me fall asleep faster. But I noticed that a lot of times the English dubbing and the English translation is different.
Yeah, I noticed that too, actually. You know what's going to be a challenge, though, is I do the same exact thing, watching it before I go to bed, and it's totally going to take me longer to get through that show than normal, because I'm reading and I pass out. And you know what happens? It's a bad thing to be watching Netflix as you go to sleep, because you wake up and like 6 episodes have gone by, and you have to figure out where you actually fell asleep amongst those 6 episodes.
Yeah, it happens.
It's like House of Cards. I fell asleep one episode, and I woke up, and all of a sudden, the guy's like a sexual predator. It was the weirdest thing in the world.
That's a little bit different. That's a little bit different, but
you know, if you watch House of Cards, though, that could seriously be a storyline of Frank Underwood.
Yeah.
So am I talking real? Or, am I crossing a fourth wall here? You guys just will have to watch the show and find out.
So let us know how Dark turns out, because I haven't been following it as much. So give us all the spoilers so we don't have to watch it. And anything for you, David, that you're watching lately?
I finally watched Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, so good. So good.
Oh, it was. I enjoyed it a lot. Otherwise, normal stuff.
Normal stuff. The only thing that I can really speak to this week, I watched Godzilla on Netflix. It came out with like an animated Godzilla version, Netflix exclusive. It was definitely a far different storyline than what I'm used to for Godzilla. So if you are a Godzilla fan, if you like monsters and you know words and screaming and all that kind of stuff, check it out, because it was pretty good. It was different than I expected, but I ended up liking it anyway. I'm pretty easy to please though, so but that's all I'm watching. I don't know what else I'm going to watch. I'm still anxiously awaiting the Black Panther movie next month. So I'm kind of digging that. But anything else you guys want to plug before we call it a night this evening?
Yeah, actually, there's just one quick little thing, if I may. I recently joined the GameSpace team a couple of weeks ago. It's been a blast writing, but I have a weekly Monday editorial. So it's basically my thoughts and rants on anything in the industry. So that's every Monday that goes live. So if you guys want to take a look, please feel free. And tweet me how much you disagree with me, because those are always fun to read.
Bold and underline the rant is what he was saying there. Bold and underline it. So.
You say that, but it could actually happen. We have Pastor Dame on staff, and he's actually a pastor. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Very
and
nice.
he had the audacity to give Destiny 2 a 100 or a 10 out of 10, whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy super attacked him really viciously attacked him on Twitter, and he handled it so graciously. I was like, man, it would have gotten under my skin a little bit too. But when you go into this guy's post history, this is a window into gamer anger sometimes, and it's not everybody, minority. But if you went to this guy's post history, he had actually messaged. It looked like every reviewer he could find that gave the game a 10 out of 10 and sent him the exact same antagonistic message, hoping one of them would reply to him. And the thing that set him off was Dame had said something just kind of kind, well, hey, we disagree, but thanks for reading. And the guy freaked out on him. It was ridiculous. So you say that, but be prepared, because there are some unsettled folks out there.
That is totally fine, because my first article actually was literally titled "Fanboy Incompetency," which ties perfectly to that.
There you go. Yeah. Well, you are ready, my friend.
Oh, yes.
Love it.
That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, barring anything else that comes up in the next 30 seconds, I appreciate everyone being here tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back next week. We're going to say we start at 9. It probably won't happen until 9:30 or later,
CST.
But Central Standard Time, not Eastern where Chris is. But yeah, so we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
So